Hi, Gart. Hi, Lori.
Okay. Waiting for Eva. I don't see her on yet. We'll give her one more minute. So. It's 5:01. Okay, I think we'll let, when Eva comes, she'll just pop into executive session. And yeah, I think so. Okay, so good evening. It's February 23rd. Welcome to the, I'd like to call the Concord-Carlisle Regional School Committee meeting to order and have a roll call. Court.
And the Concord Public School Committee is called to order. And Alexa, will you start us off?
I will. Anderson is present.
Booth present.
Out present.
Maystat present.
Brady present.
Wilson present.
Crane present.
Hello, Stephen.
Good evening.
So we will now entertain a motion to this effect, that the Concord School Committee and Concord-Carlisle Regional School Committee will enter into executive session under Purpose 3 of the Open Meeting Law to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining and litigation. If an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body, and return to open session at 6 p.m.
So moved.
Second for both.
And Heather.
That was for both committees.
And Cynthia, and roll call, please.
Anderson, I for both.
Booth, aye for both.
Eva's in the waiting room.
I'm sorry.
Whoever's monitoring the waiting room, Eva's in the waiting room. Just want to let her in.
Oh, I don't see her in there.
Oh,
She's not
showing there.
No, she's not showing here.
Maybe it's the wrong link.
Maybe
Okay.
maybe once I open the breakout room, she'll appear.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, so we have a vote underway.
Yes, I said aye for both. I'm not sure where we left off.
Very good. And Fatima,
Aye for both.
and Cynthia,
Aye for both.
and Sarah, please.
Aye for region.
And I think that rounds
there's
us out, and we will.
And Eva for region.
Very good. Eva, wonderful. Thank you. Good. All right. So we'll be heading off into our session, and we'll see the public meeting at 6 p.m. Thank you.
All right. Just waiting for the other members to turn on videos or appear. I see Fatima and Eva, but I don't see videos yet.
Maystat present.
Great. So it is 6 o'clock on the dot, and welcome back to the open session of the joint Concord-Carlisle Regional School Committee and the Concord School Committee. Do we call ourselves back into open session now? And we'll begin.
And a roll call. Anderson present. Am I doing that?
Do we need a roll call?
I don't know. I don't
think we need a we were all here for at the beginning. I think we're all accounted for.
Okay. Sorry, guys.
You're all set.
Okay. Welcome to everyone who is joining us now. We will, as is our standard practice, begin with public comment. I will remind, oh yes, Court?
Um, That's fine, but I would like to precede public comments with the following, if I might, Sarah.
Oh, yeah.
This school committee for about a month's time has heard from members of the community and discussed among ourselves, and more importantly, discussed with the superintendent, the roadmap from last August and where we are today vis-a-vis students and teachers and time in school. And I want to assure members of the committee and the public, and certainly our faculty and families, that these conversations that are going to lead to some planning that will result in real clarity around what the future can look like in our schools is forthcoming. We've promised that. We promised that during the last two meetings, and that work has already gotten underway. Some of us are aware, Sarah, that the Commissioner of Education spoke up today. What I found most interesting about that was that it didn't change what I believe this school committee and the superintendent is already doing. In fact, it rather nicely affirmed the direction that we've decided to move in, which is to make sure that we have very clear options in front of us. As one member of the school committee, I'll say nothing will ever replace safety at the top of our list of priorities. But that said, we know that resuming more in-person teaching and learning is a goal. We already know that our budget for next year is predicated on a full return. A lot of things have to go right to make that possible, but we have high confidence that this community is going to get a lot of things right. So I do want to simply make clear before you give us some guidelines for public participation tonight that the public participation that I anticipate tonight is not going to cover a lot of brand new material, but I think it's important for us to hear it. But I also think it's important for people to put it in the context that this school committee, and notably, Sarah, the two chairs of the two committees and the superintendent have been actively engaged in this. And the superintendent will have more on this tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Court. That was well said. So yes, we're interested in hearing from you. Please remember some rules that we are having. The school committee meeting is a meeting in the public, not with the public. And so we listen, but we will not reply to questions. We don't engage in conversations during this piece of our meeting. Please keep your comments to 3 minutes maximum. And if someone has already said something that you were going to say, then note that, again, we are actively listening. We have heard it. And I'm sure that a lot of people have new information to share and new ideas. And we would love to give everybody opportunity to share all of those. So with that, if you would like to make any comments, please find the participant section and raise your hand. Please announce yourself, your name and your address so that and we can be on the record, and note that we are being recorded.
And Sarah, will you recognize speakers for us?
I will recognize speakers. Yep. And I have the clock.
Thank you.
Okay. So with that, do we have any?
We have Linda Escobedo, you've got your mic off.
Good evening, everyone. I'm here from the Select Board, and I just want to comment that we are happy that the Middle School Building Committee chairs recently joined the Select Board Chairs meeting. And so that we'll have regular updates, and that there's now direct communication with all our committee chairs, and that will be helpful to keep up with all that you're doing. The other thing I want to mention is that at our most recent Select Board meeting, we were very pleased to entertain a topic that will be familiar to you, which was the George Washington Dugan plaque. And the teacher that was responsible for the letters that were sent to some of us was there, and the select board did in fact approve the plaque that will be placed in front of the existing Civil War memorial. So we were inspired by the letters and the activity of and all the good work and research that the teachers and other guests had helped inform the students and us. So thank you very much.
Now, George Washington Dugan was Concord's sole member of the 54th Regiment, and he perished in the war. Am I correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so a proud Concord son, and recognition that's overdue and deserved. And this school committee, Linda, was most impressed with those letters and the case they made to the select board. We're proud of them, so thank you.
You should be. And I'll just further comment quickly that the select board also made a commitment to continue exploring inclusion of the name on the full Civil War memorial, because we feel that that's important to pursue.
And we learned there's a little bit of space on that memorial that might be appropriate.
Exactly, but I think there are others that may also be affected by the technical federal definition that kept some of these individuals off of that original memorial to begin with.
Right. Well, you and we and the students will learn about the nuances of federal laws and how they involve public memorials.
Well, it's certainly been instructive for all of us. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other? Todd Benjamin.
Hello, hi. Sorry, I don't know why oh, there we go. There's my video. Sorry about that. So thank you for recognizing me. I appreciate the chance to address the school committee and the administration. During my attendance at some of the past school committee meetings, as I've stated previously, I've been shocked that getting our kids back to school now has not been a topic of discussion, of regular discussion at the school committee meetings. No progress there's been no progress reports on steps taken to get our kids back to school, no dates, no metrics mentioned, nothing. And unfortunately, it feels clear to me, and I know other people in our community, that this entire year has been written off as not being worth the inconvenience of trying to get our kids back to school now. You know, even though the entire world has learned a tremendous amount about COVID, the plan, the roadmap that was done in June of 2020 has not been updated. So I'm wondering, what is it going to take for you to get our kids back to school now? We have some of the lowest case counts in the state. We have new schools. We have pooled testing of approximately 1,000 staff. We're starting pooled testing of 1,300 students. And people knowledgeable with school operations have mentioned that there's no reason that we can't get at least the elementary schools back in session full-time by March 15th. So how can we make this happen? And lastly, I'd like to say that, you know, the ultra-conservative approach that is being done here is damaging our kids. In essence, the cure is worse than the illness. It seems as if we're waiting for a perfect situation, which is never going to occur. And unfortunately, our kids can't wait. They need to be back in school full-time now. And I am here to do what I can to support the teachers, the school committee, the administration in making that happen, but we've yet to hear a plan.
Thank you. Thank you, Todd.
Thank you. Thank you.
John Madden.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for the opportunity to have address the committee tonight. So just as a background on myself, my name is Dr. Madden. I was previously a protein scientist and biochemist. I studied immunology at Harvard. I have 2 doctorates in dentistry, and I work publicly at a local dental office. So I would have some work working within a COVID risk environment. Last week or 2 weeks ago, I dialed into the school meeting to voice my concerns to the school committee about the ongoing refusal to return to a normal traditional model teaching in the classrooms. Subsequently, having discussed the matter further, I still feel like those questions were never answered. So tonight, instead of asking a question to the school committee that I felt would not be answered, I decided instead to make a statement and appeal to the school committee. My appeal is largely directed towards returning grades K through 8 back to full-time traditional classroom teaching. However, keeping an open mind to other classes also to do the same. Massachusetts and Concord especially has been experiencing consistent decreasing levels of COVID-19 since its outbreak. Yet the public schools have refused to adapt to these decreasing risks and shows no signs of returning to traditional teaching anytime soon, even stating that it might not happen by September of 2021. The research shows children K through 8 have low risks of contracting and transmitting the disease. The risk to our children is extremely low, and yet we were assured last July 2020 that, quote, rest assured that children were the priority. The current CDC guidelines do not support the current Concord Public Schools stance. The public schools' refusal to return to a traditional classroom-based education is based upon an inability to, quote, maintain a 6-foot distance. The 6-foot minimal spacing is based upon risk with non-PPE wearing individuals. In order to circumvent a 6-foot barrier, all a teacher needs to do is simply wear a mask, and in addition, a face shield could be worn. I'm a dentist. I work within 12 to 18 inches of people's mouths, even within an aerosol generating cloud. This is deemed acceptable by OSHA, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration. Yet if I asked for a 6-foot distance to my patients or to work in them remotely, you would probably even suggest that this is ridiculous. Even grocery store workers and other workers do not have the luxury of always maintaining a 6-foot distance around themselves all day long. There's inherent risks in all activities in life, and it would seem like these risks are only of a concern to public school teachers. Yet if a student or their parents decide to pay for education privately, suddenly the risk of getting COVID-19 no longer seems to be a major concern for those teachers. So this tells me that there's likely more to this than an occupational concern of contracting COVID-19. And perhaps teachers' unions are holding out for a holy grail of a better pay and conditions, but we should not make our children or our teachers who want to return to normal teaching pawns in a political negotiation. Other states with much higher COVID-19 rates are back to school. I've been told along with other parents that we should be happy with what we have because other districts have it worse. Only 20% of districts are now in complete remote learning. So surely in education, we shouldn't be aspiring to those low standards. And I will finish up. Today, Governor Baker and the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education have backed up what I'm now saying in suggesting and requesting that we return to traditional classroom teaching. Other towns, such as Cambridge, are returning to full-time class teaching. Weston, Sudbury, Arlington have already reached out to parents to suggest that they do the same. I believe in Concord we're lagging behind on accepting the evidence here and instead are holding out, which is an approach which is having an impact not only on the education but the health of the children. The children's needs have been set aside for teachers' concerns, and the time of asking 5-year-olds to log into Zoom meetings needs to come to an end. I just will finish up.
Okay, I'm just going to note that you're a minute and a half over your notes.
Yeah, but I've been, it's been almost 1 year of parents waiting for answers, and I haven't got my answers from last week, so it's a minimal amount of time. Teachers need to return to the classroom to teach our children. In my profession, this would be considered patient abandonment. Yet, as Concord residents, we've been asked to simply accept it, maintain a job or a business, and meanwhile perform the simultaneous duties of teaching and supervising the kids at home. This is a time for real leadership, and sometimes real leadership means making unpopular decisions among your peers. So for the greater good of the community and children as a whole, I would appeal to the Concord Committee to allow our kids to return to full-time teaching within the classroom. I think that Concord has great public schools, but even better teachers, and it is time to let them do what they do best for our children's sake. And just wanted to say thank you very much, everyone, for hearing my statement on that.
Thank you. Ellen O'Donnell, welcome.
Thank you. Hi all. So yes, I'm actually Dr. Ellen O'Donnell. I live at 298 Holdenwood Road, and I am the parent of a 5th grader and an 11th grader. I'm also a child and adolescent psychologist at Mass General Hospital. So I just wanted to share a few thoughts about getting kids back to school, maybe with a slightly different twist. That I think others have mentioned, that the data and our own experience really in Concord with having the kids back at least part-time on a hybrid schedule are that schools are at relatively low risk for transmission. And I think with vaccinations and other factors, and I know I'm certainly out there advocating for teachers to be on the list of those first vaccinated, I think we can continue to see that trend even more, that community spread is going to continue to decline. And the piece that I wanted to bring up is that I think that the risk-benefit analysis is shifting, so that now we're seeing many studies coming out which are really proving what I and my colleagues have been seeing this entire past pandemic year, which is that just because our kids are digital natives doesn't necessarily mean that they can get what they need through a screen. They really are suffering academically, socially, and their overall mental health and well-being is declining. Our rates of hospitalizations and referrals are just dramatically up this year. And that is really across all ages. So I sort of, as a parent of a high schooler, want to make a plea for the adolescents and the teens as well, who are really missing out on some really important developmental milestones and normative experiences. So I think that the risks of them being out of school are growing, while the risks of them being in school are decreasing. And I actually want to put out there that I really think that Concord has been a model so far for other districts in making data-driven decisions, in communicating to parents, in implementing precautions and keeping kids in the classroom. You know, I work with kids from across the state and other states as well. And I really think we've stood out in getting kids back on day one and keeping them there and making wise decisions around that. I've mentioned it often in my own work, including in media interviews. I know I've shared those thoughts, I think, personally with Dr. Hunter as well, in terms of her decision-making and communication. I really would like to see us continue to set that example and to move forward with a plan to return to full-time in-person school with appropriate precautions in place no later than September 2021, certainly sooner if possible, assuming that things continue, obviously, at a pandemic level to trend in the way that they are. So both a thank you, I think, to Dr. Hunter and the school committee and school board for getting us to where we're at, and I hope that we can continue on that trajectory forward and take those next steps to get our kids back to school full-time in person. Thank you.
Thank you. Kate Connolly.
Hi, thank you. My name is Kate Connolly, and actually Ellen kind of just took a lot of what I wanted to say. I'm a local neuropsychologist, and I work with child and adolescents. And first, I do want to thank Concord. We often, in our clinical work, when I meet with parents, they're always like, you're so lucky to live in Concord right now. And so, you know, Concord has always looked at this through data and great communication. And I really feel like at this point, continuing to be the gold standard, continuing to be the leader in how we can really have our children go back to school in person is so important. In my clinical work every day, I'm already seeing the ramifications of the academics and the social emotional and the isolation in so many kids and adolescents. So as a mother of a first grader who I worry about her reading and all these fundamental skills, I just implore upon you to really look at the data and consider getting these kids back to school as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Kate, just for the record, could you note your address, please?
Oh, 25 Orchard Road.
Thank you so much.
Carolyn Mowat.
Hi, can you guys hear me okay? I just wanted to say first and foremost, well, my name's Carolyn Mowat. I'm at 111 Silver Hill Road. I have 2 kids at Alcott and 1 at CMS. I have no clinical background whatsoever. I'm just a mother here because I'm concerned. But I think Kate and I think it was Ellen echoed everything I wanted to say. And I think that the level of frustration a lot of parents have has sort of hit its limit because we're watching our kids suffer. I would love to see the kids back in school as soon as possible for full-time in person with every safety precaution we can possibly get in place. But what I am hoping for is that we do not wait until September of 2021. We do not want to sit on our hands and not try this out, even if for just a month, to see what works, what doesn't work, how it looks. We have 3 months left of school. We have an opportunity to take a chance. And I think every parent would be willing to get behind this and understand that if something went wrong or some safety measure wasn't met or anything happened, we'd all be willing to do it as a community. And I know, again, it's hard to sort of take a leadership stance in a situation where there's so many unknowns and there's little kids who are sort of being pushed into this. But I just would hope that we would take this spring as an opportunity to even do a pilot or a test of some kind to get specifically the younger kids back in school, because learning over Zoom is not working. And I have 2 younger kids that are actually great students and doing well. And also the older kids, because the social emotional situation right now is, I think, hitting its limit. So I thank you guys for everything you've done so far. I feel fortunate to be in this community. I feel fortunate that my kids are in school, but I think we have an opportunity this spring to pilot something, learn from it, make a plan for the summer, and make a plan for fall of 2021. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Allison Flynn.
Hi, my name is Allison Flynn. I'm going to keep this very short. A lot of the conversation has been around kindergarten through 8th grade. My daughter is 4.5, is in the preschool. And I just wanted to make sure that preschool was part of the conversation in terms of returning to in-person learning. They are in person 4 mornings or afternoons a week. My daughter has been in full-time preschool since she was 3, and that has obviously been cut, and I would like her to return to that for her age. The social development, the need to be around other kids, the need to be learning in those sort of organic environments is crucial for her to develop into kindergarten. So I hope that is the next step. So thank you.
Allison, forgive us for being fussy about protocol address.
Yes, 281 Monson Road.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Are there any more? Oh, there we go. Bob Lonadier.
Hi, thanks. I'll keep this brief. Robert Lonadier, 72 Finnegan Way. I agree with everything that's been said. I just wanted to advocate for the high schools. I have a 15-year-old daughter at CCHS, and I feel it's very important for her to return to full in-person learning as soon as possible. And I know we're going to have a discussion later about a possible reopening plan, so I'm very interested to hear about that discussion, but I wanted to put out a couple of questions, and I'm not expecting answers in this meeting, but I wanted to at least get them out there based upon Dr. Hunter's preliminary report. So first, I'd like to understand better the scientific underpinnings of adhering to the 6-foot rule based on the recent evidence. Second, of the 8 in-school transmissions, how many of those were teacher to teacher, student to teacher, teacher to student, and student to student? And how many total pooled teacher tests were conducted in January and February to date? And how many individual positive test cases did those result in? And then lastly, do we know how many teachers have received the COVID vaccine to date, either first or second shot? If we do not know, will this data be collected and reported in the future? Thank you very much for your time and consideration.
Thank you.
I apologize. I missed the part that says how you get in line to speak.
Oh, you go to participants? Well, you can, there's nobody ahead of you, so you can go. But for future reference, you go down to the participants and click the raise hand.
Okay. Well, as you can see, I do this a lot. Mary Ann Moore, 45 Bruce Road. I have a senior, a sophomore, and a fifth grader. And I just am completely opposite than everybody else. My kids are very much social butterflies, sports, loves life, whatever. They're currently living their best life. They're all very happy. I'm happy. I live with my parents. They're older and have a lot of, health issues. And I just wanted to say that I'm happy with the way things are going. I agree that back in September, we should all be in. I just feel each week that passes, everything in our community and our state is going to get safer. And until our teachers are able to get the option to have the vaccination, I think it's not fair to ask them to go back. So I just wanted to say thank you. And I'm very happy on all levels with what's going on. So probably no one else has said that, but I'm very happy. And so are my kids. And, that's that. Thanks.
Thank you. I don't see any more hands raised. Then going once, going twice. No. Okay. I think we will end our public comment session. Thank you very much to everybody who spoke, and anyone who's here just to support things that have been said. We've taken notes on your questions. We are going to discuss everything, and we're looking at all of the options. So, Court, I think it's time we can go to the chairs and liaisons reports. I see that.
I think we have minutes first.
Oh yeah, it's not on my.
I'm gonna move, if I may, that the school committees approve the minutes of January 12th, 2021, January 26th, 2021, and February 1, 2021.
Second for both.
And a second, Cynthia, thank you. Roll call, please.
Hold on, Court, quick comment on one, just as discussion. I sent this to Erin and she already made the change, but there was a slight correction on the January, I think it was 12th one, that in recognitions, we mentioned Tia Mancuso and it was spelled out as Tina. So I just had her corrected to Tia.
So noting that typo needs to be double checked. Thank you.
So if we can approve it as edited from Tina to Tia as the correct name, that would be great.
Perfect. Thank you for noting that. Thank you. It's always good to get people's names right when we recognize them, right?
Exactly. It's a good place to have it correct.
Thank you for attending to that.
Sure.
Sarah, can we do a roll call? Alexa?
Roll call.
Anderson, I for both.
Booth, aye for both.
About I for both.
Ms. Stead, I for both.
Mustafi, I for region.
Rainey, I for both.
Wilson, I for region. Okay. And now with that, we can, again, Linda, Amy, thank you. Thank you for joining us. We are listening.
Well, hello. Obviously, I think that a lot of people enjoyed the time off, even though it was rather, it didn't really feel like it was coming up because this year has been so crazy. But prior to break, there was some news about a racial incident. Dr. Hunter, I believe you sent an email out to the high school about it, and Mr. Mastrullo also wrote a principal's blog about it. And so when Amy and I were discussing what we wanted to bring up with the school committee, we kind of wanted to revolve the topic around that. It's so crucial for students to be held accountable for any intolerable actions. And I think something that has been kind of crossing my mind after my fellow peers and I saw the email was how teachers and other faculty members at our school should also be held accountable for any sort of disrespectful comment they might have made, whether it's intentional or not intentional, or any bias that they may hold. The email that Dr. Hunter sent did give a description that it was in a presentation, a slideshow presentation that a student gave. And I have no qualms of admitting that when I was talking about this with some of my friends were like, well, in my geometry class freshman year, my teacher used a Confederate flag to teach intersecting lines and to give examples of intersecting lines and interior and exterior angles. And obviously that is the whole debate around the Confederate flag on whether or not it should be allowed to be hung on private properties is debated throughout the country. And I think the census of the teacher's students was that it was rather inappropriate just based on what the flag means to an abundance of different people, especially for her students. And also I can speak on my experiences being a Chinese student at CCHS. It is rather, for lack of a better word, insulting that for year after year, at the end of some of my classes, I'm still getting mixed up with some of my fellow Asian students. I know there's a stereotype that all Asians look the same, but it would be nice to kind of not have that issue. And for me, it's just something that's always been super normal. And I didn't realize that that actually wasn't normal until I spoke with a couple other friends that I've made who don't live in Concord-Carlisle. They either live in they go to another school in Massachusetts, or they go to a school in another state. And they said that they've never experienced getting mixed up with another Asian student in their class just because they're both Asian. Amy has other things to elaborate on just the topic of how teachers are handling disrespectful comments from students. And I'll just pass it over to Amy so she can talk about that.
Yeah, something I think me and a bunch of other students have talked about that we're noticing is often teachers want to encourage discussion in class and kind of open ideas. You can talk about whatever you want in this class. This is a lot of political environment. But then with certain issues, it feels a little tone deaf, talking about race issues or LGBT issues. It feels like, oh, you can talk whatever you want. And then it allows students to kind of say more sometimes more racist things or homophobic things. And teachers aren't always on the defensive about that. They kind of let people talk. And it feels a little uncomfortable sometimes when that happens because not every topic should be open to all discussion, I feel especially in a classroom with so many different kinds of students. So I think that's just something that as current events are getting so complicated and teachers want to encourage discussion about current events, I think that they need to keep that in mind. It sounds a little bit tone deaf when you're talking about those issues and not filtering out racism or homophobia and just issues like that in the classroom. Linda, did you want anything else to add?
I think there's also certain moments where, like Amy was saying, if a disrespectful a disrespectful comment is brought up, how can the teacher kind of transition that? Because to fully ignore it maybe wouldn't be the best solution. Amy and I were in the same U.S. history class sophomore year, and a moment that I actually remember the other day was when our U.S. history teacher asked us, so how come no president following Abraham Lincoln reversed the Emancipation Proclamation because it was an executive order and that's something that you can do? A student then said, well, slaves are like clothes and you can't just return them to the store. I recall everyone in the class just kind of, their jaws dropped. Everyone was kind of silent. No one really knew what to say because that was a rather tone-deaf comment. And I honestly don't remember what my teacher did to follow that. And if I were in my teacher's situation, I wouldn't know what to do to follow that either. But unfortunately, that is something that does happen at the school.
Linda and Amy, I think you're brave to come and talk to us the way you're talking to us. So thank you for that. The matters you speak of, this school committee is not going to solve them tonight. You know that, and we know that, but we need to hear from you, and you're forthcoming about it. I want to assure you that as recently as today, the chairs of this committee have been talking with the superintendent about her efforts now and in the future to address issues of bias, of prejudice, of hate, all the isms that that adversely affect us all, some more than others. So thank you for being so forthright tonight.
Yeah, and I also wanted to emphasize, this is something I was going to say in the beginning, that I hope you all are familiar with the Intersections Club at CCHS. Not only do they work inside CCHS, they also have, oh goodness, I'm so embarrassed. I'm blanking on the name. Oh, Crossroads, a YouTube channel that's reading children's book, and they post videos to YouTube so that younger children at the age of elementary school can read about Thanksgiving or learn about Thanksgiving, the inauguration, Chinese New Year, and just be exposed to more culturally diverse topics. And I think Intersections Club, they're really helping make a change in the school, which is something that is obviously super necessary, just bringing awareness to diversity and cultural competency. So I just really wanted to highlight and applaud their work in front of you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sarah, for chair's report, I don't believe I have anything other than items we're going to cover later tonight anyway, such as EDCO. Heather and I could briefly report on the school building committee. We've got the design subcommittee meeting this week to continue to look at space issues around the new design, or space questions around the new design. More importantly, I think for tonight's meeting, Heather, would be tomorrow night's forum, if I'm correct. If you could give us those details.
Absolutely. That's the big announcement. We have a public forum tomorrow evening at 7 p.m. The flyer has gone out all around town, posted on the town calendar, tweeted out from the town's accounts and social media, obviously sent to the school districts. So the Zoom link should be all over the place. I've also asked the building committee should be sending it out to all of their contacts also. So we hope anybody watching and listening here may join us. Again, it's tomorrow evening at 7 o'clock. What we'll be doing is going over basically our space summary and a little bit on our education plan and how that feeds into the space summary, answering questions and taking feedback. So overall, we are in a stage of a lot of decisions over the next few months, as you referenced, Court, with the design. And it really is an iterative process of our subcommittees looking at things, and then we get feedback from the public. We revise things, we give recommendations to the full building committee, and then we kind of go through that again on the various rounds of decisions. So we're taking a lot of public feedback and really taking it to heart. So tomorrow evening at 7, there's also a communications subcommittee meeting Thursday at noon. Like you said, the design subcommittee, and our next building committee meeting is now I have to March
4th, a week from Thursday, 7:30, and we can go to concordps.org, and then there from the homepage there's a link to the middle school project for all of the particulars.
Yes, exactly, and the Zoom link for the public forum will be there as well.
Thank you. Eva? You had a
thank you. Yes, two updates. One for Concord Public Schools and Concord-Carlisle Regional School District Special Education Parent Advisory Council. They will be having a meeting. They're inviting parents with students on IEP for virtual short 1-hour meeting this Thursday, 7 to 8. They will be discussing and planning for a parent coffee. So they're hoping that people will attend. CPAC has held a basic rights workshop this month with in conjunction with the district. And CPAC is planning for teacher recognition awards. So that's in the plan. And then a quick update on Concord-Carlisle Adult and Community Education Advisory Board. They just met last Friday. Good news coming. The budget continues to be healthy despite most programs being remote. But the budget and high number of offerings available is that the committee that they are running currently is successful due to the collaboration with other towns. So those spots get filled, and they're able to offer many great offerings. So check those out. Drivers Ed had 35 students that just finished last weekend. ISMCC had 250 students registered for music classes, winter, spring semester. So that's really great to hear. They're planning for talk series FY22. They narrowed down the topic to finding common ground on divisive issue. It's very timely. So that's it for updates. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that's all we had. Didn't hear from anybody else. No. Okay. Correspondence. On the regional side, we've had correspondence about what we've talked about a lot in the public comment, opinions on and thoughts and questions about opportunities and possibilities of furthering the reopening or maintaining where we are. And a lot of appreciating of our current situation of the work that's been done, and questions about what more can we do if there is. So.
Sure, that reflects what's come into the Concord School Committee as well. Letters and emails regarding plans for expanding in-school time, and also correspondence regarding the satisfaction with the cautions that have been in place thus far. And then one letter from the group Communities Organized Against Racism, a locally based group, with a recommendation for attention through human resources and personnel to our diversity and inclusion and equity goals in the district. Oh, and we had somebody trying to sell us ceiling tiles, but I think it was who knows, random email.
Okay, great, thank you. Dr. Hunter.
Okay, great, thank you. And this, just so everyone listening kind of knows the status of what's happening here tonight, I'm giving my normal monthly report. Within that is reference to the brainstorming and options that we're doing, which the committee and administrators and I have been, talking about for the last few weeks. We don't know what those options are, so I don't want to disappoint you. We're still in the real working session. We're just back from the break, and that was targeted to be the discussion of this week and next week. And there's a lot of moving pieces, so it's, I think we all understand it's not just a simple go do this or go do that. And we know what's worked for us, and we know, what our hopes are. But we also have to frame it within the safety mindset and some of the other, factors that make this just very complicated. So we appreciate the feedback, and, I interact with a lot of you individually, which has been really one of the pleasures of the year. And we hear your points, and we share many of those same concerns, and just trying to figure out what this next step would be. I think with a really strong, firm commitment to full return by the fall, it's the next few months and what can happen then that we're really discussing. So if nothing else, take that part away while we work through what the options are for this year. For the fall, we're 100% committed to a full return and whatever mitigating factors we have to embed into that. So we share the social emotional concerns, we share the academic concerns, we share all those, and we're going to see what we can come up with. So just be patient for another week or two, and we will start to have outcomes of that. I'm not sure what they'll be. We also have this very big moving piece of the state's decision making and where they're going to land. And I'll just say from, my peers, it's stirred up a lot of questions with very little detail at the moment. So we're all going to need to navigate that as well. So, so I'll just going to skip to the COVID related pieces and then I'll backtrack. I think it's been important to note that we have been maintaining academics to a very high bar. We're doing screeners and really ensuring we've got data to support that. So during the March meetings, I'll be bringing those data points to the committee to demonstrate that. And we've built in tools that are giving us nice vertical looks at what those data points are. We are aggressively building a pretty substantial summer program in person for the month of July. Primary focus is the elementary school and some middle school, identifying regular ed, which is not the norm in most districts. We've always had a regular education, general support for kids in the summer. We're going to build that back in person as well, of course, IEP service delivery for kids who qualify. So we're looking maybe at 300 or more kids. We're still working through those numbers in the plan itself, and we'll bring that to you. And teachers continue to report about 80% of the curriculum. And I guess I'll qualify that by saying those are the priority skills and more that we know kids need to be ready to move on. Much of what we've altered is some curriculum coverage, but on a very modest way. More of it is about the approach and how we're covering it. So an English teacher might still be covering all the skills, but not every novel they've covered in the past. We're just, things take more time in the combined environment and other factors that are placed right now. But we feel very, very good about where we've landed curriculum coverage wise. So I will come back to the opportunities in a couple of weeks. As I said, I think it is important because these are factors that are contributing to what's going to help us be successful in the long term. And I know we talked a little bit about the asymptomatic pool testing was referenced. So we're excited to get that going. That's been on the desire list since the summer. And some of you may have heard us talk about that way back at the school committee level, trying to get that up and started. So we started with the staff, which I'm grateful the school committee allowed us to front the funds to do that before the state program kicked in. We tested about, I'll round it to a 750 staff over 3 weeks before we started adding the kids in this week with one positive pool. So that I know was a question. This week we are starting the kids and we had this many signups. We're still processing how many are going to be actuals. Just under 500 kids at the high school, 340 at the middle school, 130 Willard, 183 at Thoreau, 164 at Alcott, and 11 preschool. We know there's more interest probably than that because people have reached out, and we had shut down the sign up just while we got organized this week. So we'll open that back up at the end of the week for more enrollment. Kudos, really big shout outs to the school nurses who have taken on another enormous project in combination with all the others that they're already maintaining. So we're excited to have that in place, obviously eager to get the results back and give us more information. Part of the missing piece has been we don't know what we don't know. We know transmission based on symptomatic tests and based on when asymptomatic get tested through a quarantine or close contact process or some of those other mitigating factors, but we haven't known the asymptomatic piece. So that'll be a big piece of information for us. So I think those are essentially the COVID related items for tonight, with more to come in the coming weeks. So watch for that both here at the committee meeting level and certainly through email communication. In terms of, yeah.
Just quickly, to put those numbers in another context, that's about 40% of K-12. Is it not, something in that neighborhood?
Yeah, somewhere in there, which is a great start. We're actually quite pleased with that. The more the better, right? I'll say while we have numbers of parents listening. Ideal targets are somewhere 75%. Based on the professionals who have advised us, but we all believe that any testing is better than no testing. So it's a good start. We're hoping to see some of the patterns other districts have had where numbers increase as people see how it plays out, what the logistics are like, and just, have some actual versus conceptual things to see. So.
And forgive me for moving over to something less important than health. is the financing of this with the state program terrifically onerous, or is the state making
They have done a beautiful job of the bill going right to DESE. So we have had no involvement in that. That's a rarity. Usually we're a middleman somewhere, even when they pay for it. I'll just remind you all, and I think the school committee especially, the state is funding this through the end of March. That's been the commitment. I have not been here clamoring to you about ideas because I'm hopeful the Biden package is going to have more funds available. But we're going to need to talk about it soon, one way or the other, if that isn't an opportunity that the federal government will help to sustain. So another more to come. But I think come early March, we're going to have to talk about it if we don't have information on the government continuing to assist.
One of the hundreds of pieces that are factoring into the work that's getting underway in earnest this week now that your team is fully back.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
In terms of professional development, we
have a couple. Sorry to interrupt. I just have a couple testing questions. Are we testing all adults, coaches, all of the workers in the building?
It's all voluntary right now.
No, but are we offering up the test?
Oh, yes. Oh, absolutely.
So Aaron's contacting people who are not on the payroll, not.
It's all been offered, yeah. So, and we'll continue to remind them that that's available. Whether he's reached everyone, I'd have to double check with him, but I did ask him to reach out to the coaches. So I know we've had that discussion.
Yeah, that's a great point, because not everybody is in the daily pipeline of communication.
Yep. So I'll double back to be sure, but we tried to think of everybody that would need to be connected. So any more on testing or COVID before I shift gears a little bit? We gave you the survey results of the staff's feedback at a high level based on the PD paths that we ran, which covered a wide range of very important topics, social, emotional, many of the cultural work and anti-racism pieces that we talk so much about, as well as some other pedagogy and inclusion strategies. And I guess since this is my report, I should mention I ran the leadership one and enjoyed that greatly. So as you can see, the response was really positive and very, very supportive of how this effort went. And so we're going to propose a similar structure for next year. In terms of other topics here, we are on equity and cultural competency. I also met with the roundtable, shared the roundtable's feedback to the MASS group that I sit on this morning. We continue to, at the state superintendent's level, talk on what's needed across the state and to really support districts in this work. And that's been a really valuable conversation with my colleagues. And it's been a pleasure to be part of that sort of leadership mindset and what we're going to bring back to the other superintendents. I also last week, I guess I got cabin fever, I'll admit, and ended up on the National Superintendents Conference, which was virtual. And that was really worth every minute of my time. And luckily everything's virtual and recorded, so I can double back. But it was really important to hear the common struggles, but also the commitment of the same topics nationally because of and in the midst of COVID, of really supporting the social and emotional needs of kids and the commitment to equity, which what a hopeful mindset to hear a national group of superintendents make that a priority. It just made you feel like, how can there not be progress if the schools across the country are having these conversations? But then to be exposed to such different environments, I listened to one panel and, the superintendent from Selma, Alabama couldn't be any more different than us. But boy, what a crackerjack she was. And you had to know she was doing some great work there, despite her population, as she said, 100% being, reduced income Black population. And you just knew she was being as successful as possible in that environment. So. And then the middle school, I think you've touched on that. I have definitely been spending quite a bit of time. We're going to keep meeting with subcommittees over the coming weeks and community groups. That's been pretty energizing to have so much feedback and start to see the whole project continue to move forward. So I think those are my updates tonight. happy to answer any questions or any topics I didn't cover.
Lori, I'll just say, we all always want you to take your vacation and enjoy it, but we're also very fortunate that you're someone who likes to connect with other superintendents while you're on vacation.
Yeah, it was great. You know, my house was quiet and COVID had me homebound and the weather was not good. So it just sort of lent itself to it. It was excellent. Thank you.
Well, thank you on all of our behalf.
All right.
Any other questions or comments? No?
I didn't mention budget because you're going to spend the next hours on that. So Jared's going to take over in a minute.
You know, you spend a little time on that too.
Take it away, Jared.
All right. Here we go. Can you all see that?
Yes.
Excellent. All right. Here we are. So I'm going to be presenting first the CCRSD recommended, superintendent's recommended budget. I am going to ask that you try to hold all of your questions till the end. I say that because there is going to be a lot of information discussed. Most likely if I don't discuss something on one slide, I will discuss it on another one. So here I go. So you've seen this timeline, not really much to update on you, Here we are on the 23rd, presenting this recommended budget. Between now and the 19th, the school committee will have time to deliberate and hopefully vote on the line item budget. February 26th, the final guideline will be published with the Concord Finance Committee. February 27th, this Saturday, the preview meeting and the warrant opens. March 1st, the budget presentation will be presented to Carlisle. I did speak to a representative in Carlisle today. They will have dates, hopefully, to add to this timeline after the select board meeting tonight. So hopefully we know when the town meeting is, we know when the warrant opens and closes, etc. So once I get that, I will update this slide. March 9th, still the target date for our public hearing. The 19th, warrant articles are due to Concord. Again, still waiting on Carlisle. April 30th, the budget book will be available to the public. May 6th, the Concord Finance Committee public hearing, Carlisle to be determined. May 25th, article motions are due to Concord and Carlisle to be determined. And lastly, June 13th is the Concord meeting.
Jared?
Yep.
Does this also assume that March 9th would be a school committee vote? That could it happen the 16th were it necessary, but we don't have a vote, a meeting scheduled that night. So
correct. You have really until the 19th to vote, and you really have until that next Friday, but the target date would be no later than the 19th.
So we have a hoped for 9th because we have a meeting scheduled then, and a March 16 if we had to move to another Tuesday, and a 19th is the final.
Correct.
Thank you.
And just quick question regarding this. Is March 2nd a joint meeting?
It is now, yes. This, sorry, this came up just today. It looks like we've got plenty of work for next week.
Yeah, it's not listed on the school committee.
No, that's, I'll take responsibility for that. This came up just today, I'm sorry. So we're planning on a 5 o'clock meeting with executive session to be determined. And apologies to all who have their schedules thrown awry because of this. We are hoping not to meet next week at the regional level. Sorry, Jared.
Great. Okay. So as you know, we've been looking at all scenarios that could be on the table for the fall. Initially, we budgeted for all of them, but then we had to try to accommodate for all options, knowing that we would have to pick a preferred option. Once we were really able to do that, the budget started to come together. The first would be that everyone is back in person and perhaps with some modifications. We did not budget monies for any remote academy, which we are running right now, but if there becomes a need, the money would come from the CARES Act and contingency planning. This budget does also not include any student supervisors, which is hundreds of thousands of dollars. Obviously, this strategy is up for discussion. Substitute and professional development lines were replenished. Athletics and co-curricular will be returning full-time. Lastly, software was broken out by school and department or by department at the high school and will be managed by the teaching and learning department. It's important to point out that about 80% of our software used is either because of COVID or is assisting with the remote learning.
Jared, I think I'll just add one other thing that's assumption's not the right word, but something still in process that is one of the topics for next week's meeting. We've been looking at our leadership model relative to the equity work and have a draft proposal to bring to the committee next week of a structure. Right now, what we've drafted would have some financial impact to the high school budget that is not currently factored in. It's not huge amounts, but I just want to name that there's one more piece that we're going to bring to the school committee that just couldn't get done in time for this presentation. So one more piece of information next week that'll then be able to get considered and become part of the work. So just naming that for the committee and others listening if they're of that interest, but we'll bring that next week.
Yeah. And that indeed is one of the reasons why Sarah and I were hoping for a regional meeting this week. Jared, referencing the 80%, which is a big number, big percentage, is that 80% of costs or 80% of the software apps that are out there in the hands of teachers and students? What are we measuring here with?
Yeah, I'll get into that a little bit. We use over 100 pieces of software at the high school. 80% of those are due to COVID or they're used to assist.
Thank you. And I violated your weight.
No worries.
Apologies. I'll be better. Go ahead.
No problem. So you've seen this slide many, many times, but again, we use the complete zero-based process. We went through every single line, every single salary, supplies, materials, counted pencils, counted erasers, looked at all of our contracted services, looked at memberships, special education tuitions, absolutely everything. And I think this budget will reflect that. So the recommended budget for FY22 is $35,781,033, which is 2.35% more than FY21's approved budget. The 1,000 function includes all the salaries and expenditures for administration, IT, HR, and other central office-based staff. There were no budget drivers or cost savings in this function. For something to be considered a budget driver, the expense type category must increase by 25,000 or more. A cost savings is the same thing, except a decrease of 25,000 or more in the expense category. There are 52 cost categories or expense categories in this budget, and 17 of them are salary categories. Other 1,000 functions include supplies and materials, equipment, contract services, insurance, some district-wide software and hardware, and central office utilities. The 2,000 function includes salaries for teachers, assistants, and tutors. The principal and 2 assistant principals are substitute costs, curriculum department softwares, supplies and materials for them, contract services, and equipment. The Apple computer lease and our contingency accounts round out the bulk of the rest. Salaries for teachers accounted for $643,000 of the $943,000 increase. Another large budget driver was due to the CARES Act offset the region had in the FY21 budget. This was a one-time $185,000 offset in the FY21 budget. At this time, we do not know what we will need for COVID expenses. And now that we have a better feel for it, we are using CARES Act money as a side revolving account budget for COVID unknowns. We plan to carry as much COVID relief money forward as possible. The only real earmarked expense for FY22 with the CARES Act money is Zoom. So that was removed from the general fund, and Zoom will be paid for by the CARES Act. But costs should be coming down for Zoom because we know we're going to need less features and licenses. But I eventually do see Zoom being a fixed general fund cost. Another large budget driver in the 2000 series was the curriculum department software and hardware category. We created new accounts in each department's budget to account for over it's actually 113 pieces of software we use at the high school. Therefore, this is a budget driver of $151,000. These expenses were spread out inconsistently over prior years, and we never knew exactly how much we were spending. Now we have a running spreadsheet and a refined approval process that goes right up to the Director of Teaching and Learning. Textbook and curriculum expenses accounts decreased by over $33,000 because these softwares were reclassified. The 3000 function includes our transportation expenses, nurses, athletics, the radio station, and co-curricular expenses. The largest budget driver in this series is nursing salaries. This number includes an additional 1.0 FTE nurse. The 4000 function includes all of our maintenance costs, including custodial and maintenance salaries, contract services for them, as well as supplies and materials. Overall, this function is going up $143,659. Contract services are increasing $52,000 because we reduced it last year for COVID. Contract services are now in line with the FY17 to FY20 budgeted amounts. We are hoping to cut down with the contract services because we're adding an additional maintenance employee that will mostly be dedicated to the high school. Therefore, the combined salaries for maintenance and custodians will increase to $76,000. We will be bargaining with both of these unions in the next few months. Fixed charges, this includes our audit contracts, retirement, early retirement incentives, and sick leave buyback, insurance, OPEB, and other expenses such as workers' comp, unemployment, and Social Security. We are over the peak of our early retirement incentive, and this line has been reduced by $30,000. After a large increase to unemployment line due to COVID unknown, we decreased back to level funding. Our projected health insurance expenses are $100,000 less than FY21's budget. We expect there to be a savings in FY21 as well. Our retirement incentive is the only budget driver in this function, and it's going up about $91,000. Fixed assets, those include our equipment accounts, buses, and vehicles. This line is going up mainly due to the 2 new buses that are part of our 10-year fleet management plan. Debt service is continuing to decrease. And lastly, our special education tuitions are decreasing by over $210,000. And school choice and charter assessments are decreasing $81,000. And I'll have a little bit more about them in another slide. I've identified $1,403,741 in budget drivers made up of 10 cost categories. The first is our largest cost driver, teacher salaries. We are currently in negotiations with our teachers union, but budgeted costs are up 4.7%. This includes a new 0.8 FTE special education coordinator who will help with special education duties. Here's the increase to the budget by reducing the CARES Act offset. Overall, our software and hardware costs are increasing 69.22%. Again, we've identified over 113 different softwares we use. And again, the budget for the curriculum software is approximately $155,000. The retirement pension is going up $91,785. Overall, the nursing expense type is increasing $90,000. due to the 1.0 nurse that we're adding and a new lead nurse stipend. Salaries for maintenance and custodians are increasing. Again, we're in negotiations with both unions. We budgeted for an additional maintenance employee in actually an FY20's budget, but never filled the position. We did not budget this position during the FY21 budget process, but the need to add this position after the fact was apparent due to the additional duties arising because of the pandemic. This budget includes an additional split maintenance employee that will hopefully allow us to continue to reduce our contract services lines. And we have, as I said before, we have 2 new bus leases in this budget. The salary for support staff is going up a moderate 3.32%, but this is mainly due to a budget correction, and the FTEs are the same. The region's share of case special education transportation costs have gone up 0.81%. As you know, this is based on ridership 2 years prior. Total assessed costs are going up only $39,641 because we were receiving an $86,190 credit. If we did not receive that credit, our total cost would have been about $126,000 more than we're currently being assessed. Overall, contract services are up 3.8%, mostly due to the maintenance and custodial. So to offset the budget drivers, I've identified just over $648,000 in cost savings, made up of 6 cost categories. Overall, special education tuitions are down $210,000, and the circuit breaker offset increased an additional $12,450. Debt has decreased. Overall, the insurance expense category has gone down $95,945. Included in this is medical insurance for active employees and retirees, which account for about 97% of the costs. And smaller expenses such as public liability insurance and vehicle insurance are also included in this cost category. Charter assessments and school choice assessments are projected to go down a significant amount. The region's school choice enrollment has been dropping. Back in FY18, we had 7 sending students. We are now down to just 1, according to the preliminary FY21 data. Similar story with the charter schools. It went from 4 in 2020 or FY20, and we're down to 1 in this year's preliminary numbers. The salary for assistants and tutors has decreased 3.37 FTEs based on FY21's budgeted. The total budget savings for FY22 is $54,000, but all tutors currently staffed are accounted for in this budget. And then the curriculum and textbook lines are down 41.6%. Many of these lines went to fund the digital textbook subscriptions and software in the past, which are now budgeted in the software lines. This budget has a total of 220.69 FTEs, which is 1.25 FTEs less than FY21's budgeted. This includes every employee but our food service staff who are paid out of the food service revolving account. We are paying about 4.5 FTEs out of that revolving account. Our largest salary category is teacher salaries. This category includes salaries and longevity payments. The budget went up for them about 0.42 FTEs, although there are some moving parts that cause this. And I'll come back to this slide. We had 15.88 teacher FTEs in English in FY21. In FY22, we have 15. Here's how we got there. One teacher was budgeted as a 0.5 in this section and 0.5 special ed, and is now 0.75 in this line and 0.25 in special ed. Overall, it is a wash, but for this line's purposes, it's an increase of 0.25 FTE. Another position that was budgeted as a 1.0 in this section in FY21 is now a full 1.0 in special ed. So again, an overall wash, but we are now at 0.75 FTE if you're doing the math. Another position went from 0.88 FTE to a 0.5. And lastly, an English teacher who is budgeted as a 0.5 in FY21 is now budgeted as a 0.75. This last increase of 0.25 gives that total line a decrease of 0.88 FTE. World language section is increasing 0.25 FTE based on projected enrollment in Chinese. In math, a position is being reduced from 0.75 to 0.5. Another position is going from 0.5 to 1.0. Lastly, we are reducing one budgeted section due to enrollment, but that change actually happened in FY21 and a retirement position was not filled. The special education line is increasing 1.8. The reason for this is the 1.0 English teacher is now housed here as a 1.0 special education teacher. And a portion of the requested K through 12 special education coordinator is now budgeted here. Therefore, this line is increasing 1.8 FTE. So overall, that's sort of the math on the 0.4 to FTE increase. And the reason why I wanted to show that is if you went into the line item budget, it could be confusing. Our tutor and assistance line is reducing 3.37 FTEs, but again, we're not reducing any current bodies. This is simply who we have now in FY21 and no additional need is needed at this time. FY22 is the first year we are applying FTEs to drivers. The region has 12.85 driver FTEs. Of the 12.85, 2.38 FTEs are charged directly to the METCO grant. This accounts for approximately $76,000. We are increasing the maintenance department's FTEs by 0.9 over FY21's budget. This is split with the CPS budget. We are increasing the nurses at the high school due to need, and they're going from 2 to 3. We also budgeted again for the nurse stipend in this line, lead nurse stipend. We reduced a total of 0.3 FTE in the business office after a retirement last year, and 0.2 FTE is the region share since this person was primarily dedicated to the high school. So overall, this budget is carrying 1.25 FTEs less than FY21's budget. We charge approximately $312,000 to our grants and revolving accounts at the region. This is excluding our food service grant, which is 100% self-funded. It's actually 312 plus, the Title I of 159. We are expecting just under $362,000 in our METCO grant allocation for FY22. Most of the grant is spent on staff salaries, driver salaries, and fuel costs. We then spend a small portion on supplies and materials and a little bit on professional development. We increased our campus monitors offset $25,000 after reducing it in FY21. We expect to receive the full amount of the parking revenue again in FY22. In fact, to date, we have received over $43,000 in the parking fees this year. So we're actually coming out a little bit ahead. FY22's budget includes $2,565,025 in out-of-district placements. This is $210,825 less than FY21's budget. In addition, our circuit breaker and our IDEA grant offset is $12,450 more than FY21's. So overall, the special education tuitions are $223,000 less than FY21's budget. At this time, we are projecting 33 out of district students at the region. And in FY21, we had 35. I am looking for the FY20 as well as the FY19. I had it somewhere, but it's as I said before, it's a significant decrease than in years past. So our E&D, nothing has changed since this summer. We still do not have it certified. But as you can see, we started the year with $1,376,858, which was 3.9%. We received $569,750 in revenue more than budgeted in FY20. We ended the year with a surplus in the general fund of just under $68,000. We're also using $300,000 to offset the FY21 budget, but that is what they call a reserve to reduce. Therefore, I'm still estimating $1,714,602 in our E&D for FY20, which is 4.99%, which is, I can't get any higher. So it's really good news. Here's a chart of our estimated savings due to the early retirement incentive. For those of you that don't know, when someone retires, they are at the top of their lane, and then we bring in a replacement around $75,000 or less. And as you can see in these numbers, they speak for themselves, and the incentive has really paid dividends. I was hoping to have an updated OPEB evaluation report, but that has not come yet. We're still just saying it's still probably a month away. So we're still using the FY18 evaluation report. In this, the FY18 plan design changes, notably the addition of the high deductible health savings plans, actually had a positive impact on this OPEB evaluation. Similarly, the FY18 FTE reduction had a positive impact on the June 30th, 2019 valuation. However, underfunded amounts in FY19 and FY20 contributions will negatively impact future valuations. We now anticipate the completion of the June 30th, 2020 OPEB valuation by March 30th, 2021. We do think, though, with the way that they're doing it, that these numbers will go down. So this is fairly outdated, and as soon as we get that new actuarial report, I will present on that. What this table does is it details the OPEB funding schedule as of June 30th, 2018. A FY22 contribution of $548,087 is required to meet the actuary determined 2038 100% funded target date amount. So we are recommending level funding the OPEB contribution at $550 through 2022 in order to mitigate the FY19 and FY20 underfunding. The region has 22 buses, one of which is a wheelchair bus. The oldest of the fleet are from 2008. As part of the FY21 budget, the district has completed the procurement process of 2 new vehicles ready for delivery in April. And then we have 2 additional bus leases, again, for FY22. And again, a breakdown of our drivers, 15.23 FTEs, 12.85 of them are regular routes, and 2.38 are MECO routes. Healthcare premiums continue to rise at a pace greater than inflation. FY21 active employee premiums increased between 1.5 and 6.5%, depending on carrier and plan. Smaller increases of 1% to 5.5% are expected in FY22. Retiree health insurance premium rates increased between 8 and 16% in calendar year 18. Calendar year 2021 rates will increase between 1.6 and 5%. Beyond premium increases, the cost of retiree health insurance increases proportionately to the number of eligible retirees will increase considerably. Because the population of eligible retirees continues to increase, the district expects, again, retiree health insurance to be the fastest growing expenditure over the next decade. As you can see, debt is going down. This chart presents the anticipated debt service amounts through the final high school construction debt service payment, which is in FY38. Any future debt requires Concord and Carlisle town approval at town meeting. Here's just an update that you've seen before on the CARES Act expense chart. And it represents all known costs related to COVID-19. We will have a report for you soon in what we're anticipating to spend for the rest of the year. We do, as I said before, want to try and carry over as much money into future years as possible. We still do not have the exact amount on the DESE Relief 2 amounts, and we are expecting additional monies from the Biden administration. So as soon as we have that, we will let you know. The $297,000 at the top there, that will be expended. And if we could bring the other two over to future years, that is what I'm going to try and do and recommend. So as you know, in addition to assessment, the districts receive state and other revenues. At this time, we are projected Chapter 70A to be just under $2.9 million. This is an increase of $138,665 over FY21. We anticipate Chapter 71, which is the regional transportation reimbursement, to be approximately $675,000. This is actually $125,000 more than the FY21's budget projection. This is also an area that we can be a little aggressive in our projections. The governor's budget is currently projected that we will get a little under 620, but we know that we will get probably a little bit more and up to 675 based on our end of year report that we submit to the state every year. Excess and deficiency offset is the same as in FY21's. And again, at some point in the not so distant future, we do hope to reduce this to zero. The interest revenue is decreasing $80,000 based on interest rates. And we are only expecting actually $25,000 in FY21. Miscellaneous and rental revenues were both level funded. Charter reimbursement was reduced $4,081 based on the new projections. So overall, we expect $3,932,241 in non-assessment revenue. So as you know, assessments are based on the October 1 enrollment. On October 1st, Concord had 77.32% of the students and Carlisle had 22.68. The numbers drive everything. The superintendent's request is $35,781,033. The first box starts with our operating budget, which excludes transportation and debt. After reducing the state and local revenue, which we just went over in the last slide. The amount to assess is $27,565,949. From there, we assess the transportation costs after we apply the Chapter 71 reimbursement. The amount of transportation assessment is $90,931. We then break out our debt assessment. Therefore, overall, the region's budget is increasing 2.99%. Without debt and 2.06% overall with decreased debt service. Concord's guideline is for non-debt assessments only and is $796,476. To get to this number, we would have to reduce the total budget another $195,941. This would result in a total increase of $606,377. Which, as you saw in our budget drivers, probably would not cover all of our contractual fixed costs. So I wanted to show what the assessments would look like at the Concord guideline. And again, to get there, we would have to reduce our budget $195,941. The last slide I just wanted to show, in case you were wondering what assessments would look like based on the FY21 enrollment shift. The FY21 enrollment included in 0.85 enrollment shift to Concord. Actually, the FY22 enrollment included a 0.85 enrollment shift to Concord due to having 46 more students. But the enrollment in FY21 was 76.1% Concord and 23.9% Carlisle. If enrollment had not shifted, this is what the assessments would look like. So again, the overall increase we're asking for is $802,000. And here is the breakup without debt and with the decreased debt service down here. So I know there was a lot of numbers, a lot of information, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
I'll start. Might as well, right? Okay. I have a question about one of those budget drivers being that the software, and I think I'm just maybe needing some clarification. So under the budget assumption, it first said that the CARES Act money in FY21 was covering a lot of that software because 80% of it, you said, is like COVID driven. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Or used for, used to assist on remote learning.
Okay. Okay. So then I guess my question twofold. Number one, if there's like if we're going to return, if we have another budget assumption that is we're going to return to full in-person learning next year, why are we keeping that software, or why are we not still classifying that under CARES money? Why is that becoming like part of the regular budget?
I can answer unless you want to, Laurie.
Why don't you answer the CARES, the money part, and I'll answer the instructional part.
Yeah.
Okay.
So while I say a lot of this is COVID driven and can be applied to the CARES Act, there are many of these softwares that we did have in the past that had helped with learning. We've just used them and incorporated them now more. And the other thing is our textbooks. Our textbooks now are more digital. And we classified the textbooks to softwares. So there's a less reliance on the physical textbook line, and those lines went down. So just a lot of the software that we had is just the new way of learning. And it's going to become a fixed cost. So what we can do is, it is something that would classify as a future CARES Act offset cost, but we did want to get that into the general fund because a lot of that was accounted for in the past. We just didn't know. We knew how much we had. We were not consistent on what lines that we were putting them in. Now that they're in the department lines, they're easily identifiable. We know exactly how much science is using and what softwares they're using, math, etc.
So then is the assumption that like they're not actually new tools that we're using, that we've been using them for a long time?
It's both, Alexa. It's definitely both. And, you know, what the work we're doing now, and there was only, we got to a certain place to bring you a budget where two purposes happened. One was to get it centralized, and two was to start, well, even more than two, consolidate and look at what redundancies we had. And then three, be sure we could label COVID-related items should we be looking to charge them to the CARES Act. So we did that as we went. Yeah. The work to be done going forward is to look at some of this, and we're about to bring you a plan to gather this information. Some of this turned out to be a better way of operating than what we were doing before. So we're trying to be sure we've still got the tools where that's the case, as well as the content-based tools. You got to remember the high school has a lot of tools. You know, we have content-based tools, and then we have more functional, production kind of tools. And that's often why the cost seems so high, because it's a combination of the two.
It just seems like such a giant number.
And to Jared's point, this was spread out all through the budget in some of it.
I like it better like this. This is excellent.
We do too. So it's a lot clearer and more transparent, which is why we all looked at it and went, wow, that's a lot of money. So we're not done yet. We're going to keep vetting this, talking through it, honing in as we come out of COVID, eliminating some. So this is a multi-year project.
Okay. Yeah. Yes. My next question is about the addition of the nurse. Is that a COVID-driven hire? And I guess same question, like, do we think that this is going to become a full-time, like a forever position? And if so, fine. And if not, why again wouldn't you throw that in the CARES? Good, because you can't do salary under CARES?
Yeah, so let me answer the first part of the question, which will answer the second part. This has been an ongoing discussion as to the level of nursing need at the high school. We've been student nurse ratio. We have not been meeting the recommended guidelines from the state. So pre-COVID, this was a pretty substantial topic we were having and trying to discern what the needs were and how to get there. What COVID did was accelerate the process to put a new structure in and see the benefits or not. And so while we've this year promoted one nurse to a nurse leader, K-12, which has been incredibly important and effective in COVID, but we can see the benefits post-COVID too. And we had put in a per diem nurse to help offset the day-to-day work while she did that job. And so that's the model we're going forward with. We're actually looking to ask for a permanent position at the high school, because what we know, the roles have shifted so much, they're going to shift back to what they used to be doing. And we know what those needs are. Okay. And they're not going to change. So this model, actually, we're all pretty excited about. It's been really effective systemically and for the high school. And that's why we've brought you the request for another nurse.
All right, cool. Those are my two most important questions. So I'll let someone else.
They were good ones. Thank you.
Can I follow up on the technology? So that is not a negligible number, 66%. And I want to perhaps start a conversation if it hasn't come up in the past, but I'm sure it has. And Dr. Hunter, this is not going to be new. This has been a concern for me. I would like us to begin assessing how much technology is helping our students learn. Are we using technology in the best way possible to maximize learning? I am very concerned with the level of distraction that it's causing, especially, not exclusively, but especially with special needs students. There's a lot of distraction. And from a budget point of view, because we are creating that distraction by using the internet for education, we are also increasing our budget in special needs because we have education plans in place to reduce those distractions. And then the technology is increasing these distractions, which means we're also undoing a lot of the services that we're offering our students. This is not going to be resolved tonight, but I have a serious concern on the return of this investment in terms of outcome, in learning outcome on our students. Again, not exclusively, but most importantly, our special needs students.
We don't disagree with any of that. I do want to just, and again, there's a much bigger conversation. Fatima's right. I think what we're seeing is the way you use the technology matters greatly. And if there's a COVID silver lining, I think we're using it differently in some cases. And I don't just mean Zoom. I mean in what we're offering kids for options in terms of output and how they create and how they collaborate. And I think we're maximizing more of that than we had been. So I think it's a big picture dive we need to take and a pretty thorough review of both those questions and concerns and the benefits, and then, weighing both sides of that. Balance, right? It's always balance that we're trying for. We've lost control of balance in COVID, at least for the moment. We'll name that, and the challenges there.
Jared, you're not going to hear questions from me tonight. What I'd like to do is get a copy of the PowerPoint, and I've got your spreadsheet as well, the 1,000 through 5,000, which I want to look at in the context of the PowerPoint, and I'll have follow-up for you. But thank you for putting together what you did tonight.
Yeah, just a reminder, this is your first of maybe 3 discussions about the budget, so you've got time to digest and process and follow up.
And I have a similar comment, just so the public knows, we had not seen this presentation until tonight. So I personally cannot digest all this information. And so I asked that the chairs put slots in for both the region and Concord Public Schools for our March 2nd meeting to continue the discussion. One big piece I would like to second, I think I've asked this for like 3 times, to get a full layout of the current hardware and software.
Yep. Yes, you have asked, and we're going to get that to you. They made that request of Peter.
Right.
We felt it was information overload tonight, so you'll get it for sure.
Yeah, and if we can get it before the meeting, that would be really useful.
Sure.
And for hardware, we should have an inventory for insurance purposes anyway.
Oh yeah. Well, Peter's question to me was, do you want the 1 or 2 page version or the hundreds of pages version? So we'll get you a version, and you can give us feedback if we went for the right version.
It's just basically by lease, by age.
Yeah.
So for the buses, if we could get the mileage.
Yeah, and that's actually on the, it was really in small print. It's on this presentation, so I'll get you that.
Yeah, that's the other thing. I was like, I can't really read part of this. And let's see, I think I just had a couple, other things I'll defer to next week. So
sure.
That's fine.
And I think your hardware software request will match up with my hope to refresh what the school committee knows about how we threw off our timetable around hardware acquisition for students last year, and how that change gets fit into the longer term cycle.
And Jared, does this budget include any new leases?
It includes no new leases, but it includes the lease for next year in it, even though we prepaid for this year's. So we can prepay again for next year's.
Right. There's no new leases, though.
There's no new leases.
No, we don't. And we'll show you actually we're back on track. So that's a positive.
So going off cycle was a bit of a catch up.
yeah, it actually had a positive. The COVID urgency put us back positively.
Okay. I just, sorry, go ahead, Heather, sorry.
No, go ahead, Padma. You can finish up.
Yeah, just wanted to clarify, forgive me, Jared, if I misheard this, but on page 7, there was a figure of 3.8. You're muted, I think.
Page 7 of the budget of the
the presentation that you just gave us.
The 3.32 for support staff?
3.8 on page 7.
Oh, contract services.
Yes, I think I heard you say 8.3, and forgive me if I misheard. So is it 3.8?
It's 3.8.
Okay, yeah. Thank you. I just wanted to clarify.
Okay, I'll jump in quickly. I just want to say, first of all, high level, I know that you put a lot of time in putting this together, and that's why this is the first time we're seeing it. But to me, this presentation was really helpful to understand the line item budget that we've all looked at already. So I felt like the background and overlap was really good. I wanted to clarify a couple of things. One thing that I just noticed in going through the line item budgets, which I think you can't help but it jump out at you, that substitutes and supplies and materials, along with software, obviously, which we talked about, but also substitutes and supplies and materials all jump out as not necessarily big number drivers, but all large increases. And I'm assuming, and just want to confirm this, that this is kind of recovery from last year because, or this year, because this year we cut substitutes and supplies and materials. So I just wanted to point that out and confirm that that assumption is correct.
Yeah, so our total substitutes line, that is going up. Well, it's going up significantly more. I would say it's CPS because there's more locations.
Yes,
so
I did notice it more there actually. So this is
but the substitute lines at the high school going up 19,500.
Yeah.
And the supplies and materials are only going up actually 17,000.
Okay. So maybe that was more of a CPS.
There's more CPS.
Yeah. Okay. And just a reminder, we haven't been hiring per diem substitutes. So
right, exactly.
We're planning to do that.
We'll need to next year. Exactly. I just wanted to point that out somewhat of, again, my assumption, just to confirm it. Let's see. Next thing on OPEB, I guess I just want to point it out for those who haven't followed it for many years. And I know you referenced, Jared, the fact that the recommendations have changed. I guess I just want to point out that we, compared to other districts, we are way ahead of what anybody else is doing. And so I feel like this is very good. In case you looked at this and thought, oh, why were we a little behind for a couple of years? We were actually one of the few to contribute as much as we did. And I'm glad to see that we're still catching up anyway. But I guess I just wanted to point out so that everybody knows we're in a pretty good position in terms of OPEB, correct?
Correct. In fact, I think we have the highest OPEB account of any region in the state. And again, I do expect this number of 550 right now, or 548, to go down based on their new way of doing things. We just haven't gotten that report yet, and we really have to digest it before I'm even comfortable explaining it.
Right.
But we do feel that the factors are going to benefit the number that we put in and be lower.
Okay, good. That's great. Let's see, a quick question on the charter revenue and expense. I know there are revenues attached to charter and expenses.
Correct.
So I have two related questions, actually. One is there's a significant change this year. And again, assumptions. I'm kind of assuming that's due to COVID changes. We don't usually see that big a swing in charter numbers yearly, do we?
We do not. So the charter again went from 4 to 1.
Right, which is, it's only 3, but it's a 75% drop. So.
But the budgeted, so the revenue piece went from, using round numbers, 5,500 to 1,500.
Right.
So we lost a little bit in the revenue for charter.
Right.
Our charter expense is actually decreasing from what was budgeted. I budgeted $73,000 in FY21 based on the information that I had at the time. The new budget amount is $13,442.
Right. Okay. So overall, it's a significant savings. And I guess, again, just to know, we might need to be prepared to see that increase again at some point once COVID is over, right? If people kind of go back to the way they were, maybe not, but again, just something I wanted to highlight so we're all aware of it as a shifting number.
And there is a formula. The first year is more expensive than, say, the last year. And there is a formula on how that works. So if
a very complicated formula.
So the first year of the kiddo going out will be more expensive. Each year it goes down.
Got it. Which means that we're fortunate that we're dealing with small numbers here instead of large numbers and large swings.
Correct.
Okay, my last question, sorry. Just to return to the guidance number and the assessments and everything. And this is mostly that I wasn't writing quickly enough as you went through the last couple slides. So my apologies here. Can you just tell me again, when we're looking at the assessments, the difference in the number, and I want to be clear, our operating budget is different from the number, and the FinCom guideline relates to the assessment number. So when we're looking at assessments, you said the difference, the delta between our number and the guideline is 195,941, correct?
Well, see, this is where it gets tricky. So to get to the guideline of the 796,000,
got it. That's a 195 delta in the operating budget.
But we right now are the Concord guideline, is about 150 over.
Got it.
But to get there, for every $3, you lose one of Concord-Carlisle.
Got it. Okay.
Does that make sense?
Okay. Yes, it does. And to get, again, to get their number, the 195 number, if our increase is, where are we here? Our total increase right now is 2.35%, correct?
Including debt.
Including debt. So that number, if we were to get to the guideline, would be, what would that 195 difference make our operational increase? Does that make sense?
Concord only cares about the operational.
I know.
So debt, take debt out of it. So it's all in the operational assessment.
Okay.
So it's
so that
the
number
796 assessment number it has nothing to do with debt.
Got it. Okay, never mind. We'll stick with the 195 as if we wanted to meet the guideline, that's what we would have to cut. Okay, good. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Jared. I don't have any other questions right now. I think I'll have some questions about retiree health insurance, Chapter 70 reimbursements, and going forward. But
maybe one request I'd make is if you have questions this coming week, to send them to us ahead of the meeting, and then we'll be sure that we're ready to answer them. We're good on our feet, but just to be sure.
So I'll send this presentation out to you all tonight, and I'll have it on our website by tomorrow morning. Send it to the FinComs tonight as well.
Jared, I'm curious if you can bring us numbers also next week when we talked about, and Sarah, you brought it up again, the health insurance for retirees. I went back and thought about the incentive that we give for early retirement. And I'm wondering again about the return on that incentive. If the health care cost is that high, is that in early retirement incentive worthwhile? Can we have a comparison if possible?
So just remember, we're paying health insurance when they're on the employment books too. So I think we can try to put some numbers together. Jared, you think we can?
Yeah, I do. I think it's negligible though.
Yeah,
I don't think it would. Yeah. Again, I think the numbers, and I know Ian is listening and he's great with ideas. Ian's the assistant business manager. Again, the savings, so say someone is getting 120,000, we bring in somebody 75. we're saving for years and years and years. So while I only showed you 3 years worth of savings, if we were really trying to get to the in the weeds, we could, project that out for the next 15 years until that person hits that number. And we're saving millions in both districts by doing this.
Thank you.
Sarah, I think Christine had a question.
Yep, I was just going to recognize Christine. Hi.
Hi, thank you very much. Jared, just on surplus for FY21, where do you think you're going to be? And is that, I assume that's not yet reflected in these numbers.
Yeah. Right now, we're not in closeout mode yet. And I think, I actually don't have a great guess yet. I think there will be a surplus, but I think there's a number of things that we can do with that money. One of the things will be what we're going to be talking about next in the capital, talking about capital for the high school. We do have a capital revolving account that surplus could potentially go over there. We will continue to prepay our tuitions for next year as we normally do. But yeah, there will be conversation about a surplus. I usually have an idea of where we are around April 15th, give or take. I usually can come within 5%. But right now, excuse me, and I still need to know what additional CARES Act money we have, and if there's any limitations on what has to be spent, what has to be spent in FY21 and what can be rolled over.
Yeah, so that's a whole bunch of information we need to bring to the school committee when the time is a little further down the road.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, I had just a quick question. This is a lot of information to really take in, so I will forward the rest of my questions this week. But there was a slide on teacher FTEs and how those will be changing. If you don't mind, just expanding a little bit on that, how those changes are happening. And the reason why I bring up this question is because we're coming out of pandemics. So we understand that students will have more needs that we might need to address. So does the budget include enough cushion to make sure that we can provide the services, if tutoring services or whatnot, if the students need it, that there is room there.
So and there is a slide too that talks about the FTEs for teachers were plus 0.42. In this budget, we do have $150,000 contingency that is built in 2 lines. So that would help pay for costs that are budgeted if something like that arises, as well as, circuit breaker, I can safely say right now that I think we're going to be able to carry over the max. So that is something too that's a contingency, as well as our E&D account and our CARES Act. So right now I do feel that there is plenty of contingency to cover something like that.
I think too, the staff is essentially level. There's little bits of movement. Usually it's a 0.25 here and there, just depending on how enrollments play out, but there's no significant changes. So all our supports will be as robust as ever, I expect, and, making their way back to more normal functioning.
But what I do recommend too is once I send this report, if you want to compare it to the line item budget, because again, as Heather said, my goal was to, and I think it worked, that you saw the line item budget, you saw the deltas and the FTEs, and then I tried to explain it on these slides. Again, it's a lot of numbers, and actually to the general public who has not seen the line item budget, it probably was a little bit confusing, but again, we're going to be giving this presentation 2, 3, 4, 5 more times.
Yeah.
6, 7, 8.
Probably. By June? Yeah. And just a reminder while I'm reminding myself, we have the Concord warrant preview on Saturday morning. We should note that while we're talking money. So Jared will be doing a smaller version of these presentations for preview for the public.
Do you know if that link has been posted yet?
I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm assuming by tomorrow because of the public posting
It's,
timeline.
9 a.m. as I recall. So if we're finished with the budget, I'm going to propose, Sarah, that we take a 5-minute break and resume at exactly 8:05, if that's okay.
Yep.
All right. Do we need a motion to that effect, or can we just vacate our seats?
I think as chair, you have that power.
I think we can just take a break.
We're taking a break. We've done our 3 hours, and all right. See you in 5.
8:05.
Sorry about that. I've been sitting here for minutes, not realizing I was still off camera.
Quite all right. Starts to feel like a long day around this hour.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, especially when you start at 4 a.m. like some people we know.
Yeah. It's my best time of the day.
I know.
I know I get your messages and then I start texting other people and I'm going, oh,
Yeah,
wait.
don't do that, Sarah.
Maybe other people aren't on the same
You have to remember your audience at that hour. I have a couple administrators that are up that hour with me, but we have to be thoughtful. One of them had an admin assistant. Yeah, one of them has an admin assistant that had to make that comment like, I'm not up at that time.
Right. That's a fair boundary to set it for.
Yeah, a little fair comment.
All right, so we did not temporarily suspend, so we have everybody back. I think we can plow right in. Sarah, if I'm correct with capital plan?
Plan.
Does that go to Jared or to Lori for starters?
I think it's going to go right to Jared. We're really just revisiting the prior discussion.
So I'm gonna show the memo again. So yeah, this is just a conversation. Let me try and get this.
I think one of my biggest thoughts for tonight was the confirmation that there's no warrant articles to be proposed for town meeting. I think that probably is a piece we should confirm after the discussion, because if there were any consideration of that, we need to be having that right now. So.
What I'm concerned, you confused. Do you want us to confirm that there's none or that there is one?
No, to have that discussion to decide. I think I just hinted at my recommendation inadvertently.
So I think we're gonna go through this this set of recommendations and decide what might come out of operating.
We did go through these before, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So I think two goals, I think, and Jared's going to talk through some of the options as well, but the other timing of this is whether there's any school committee interest in a warrant article for town meeting, because your warrant's going to close and the option will be gone for another year. We are not recommending that right now. I just want to be sure we've had the conversation and that the consensus is the same.
So I just want to confirm, there's nothing new in this memo. We have already discussed this, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So yes. I don't think we need to go through the line items, in my personal opinion, because we went through them already.
Great.
I do have a related question, though. Sort of I'd like to see a full inventory of things that we need on the campus or work we think needs to be done.
I don't think it's a lot bigger than this right now, but we will put it into one place.
Yeah, my question is the fields, the baseball, softball fields, and has the drainage been completely resolved?
One piece of drainage has definitely been resolved. There is some drainage on the softball field, and Jared, you're working on that, correct?
So we expect actually the drainage for the infield to be going out to the street for bid. We're working with Gail on that by next week, actually.
Yeah, so if you could just give us sort of the full picture.
Yeah, what I'll do is I can bring that to the school committee on the because that's being paid by the athletic revolving account.
Right, it's just work to be done, and then you could tell us what the expectation is for funding. Right. And then other things like the shed, is that off the table or?
We have not, I think it is off the table. There's no ability to manage it with the impervious surface limitations. I think it's off the table.
Even with any waiver from the ZBA?
Not based on the conversations we last had probably 2 years ago.
Okay, well, we can talk about it.
It really stalled, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It wasn't for lack of effort, Cynthia.
I just wonder, so we have those containers sitting up there, right?
Yeah, at the upper fields, yeah.
Yeah, I would think that they prefer those to be gone and have something more permanent, but we can discuss that later.
Yeah.
Well, if you're looking for, if you're looking for school committee opinions on this, on a recommendation not to move a warrant article, I will just express an opinion that I agree that we should not. That's despite knowing that some of these on here are things that we've talked about my entire 6 years on this committee, and I would really, really like to see them done. That said, we're still in a COVID environment, and it's not the time to be asking for a warrant article, is my opinion. So that does not take away from the importance level of these and the frustration at having to punt yet again for a year, but I think we have to. My opinion.
Yeah, I'll support that. I'm not hearing the kind of urgency from the administration that would lead me to think otherwise.
Okay.
I do think eventually, though, once I can get more information, once I know where we're going to end, that we can come back to the stabilization fund and have a conversation about that. And maybe we can start funding some of this stuff ourselves.
Jared, I didn't see this memo attached to the, excuse me, to the February 9th agenda. Could you forward a copy to us if
Certainly.
you didn't
Yep.
already?
We'll get that attached. I know I was working with Aaron on that, and I dropped the ball.
No problem. Thank you. Okay.
We'll attach it to tonight's agenda too, so it stays synced up.
So does anybody need to go through this right now? What people's sense about that? Cynthia said not needed. Heather weighed in.
I think you're okay with it.
So we're going to get updates from you, Jared, on how you're moving on some of this.
Yep.
Okay.
And I'll give a report on at the next meeting, the status of the Gale project and when it's going to hit the streets and timeline.
Great. Okay. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. So now we've got.
So Sarah, can we turn to Fatima now?
Yep.
Fatima, in regard to the policy subcommittee?
Yes, I have an ask, and I will explain why I'm making this ask. I would like us to pull the first and the last and not discuss them this evening. I would like to bring them back to the policy subcommittee for further discussion, only because I feel that we didn't give them the discussion that they warrant, I think. And I'm asking for your patience with us, because all three of us on the subcommittee are new on the regional subcommittee. I know Eva has served in Carlisle. We have met twice this year. And I would rather make this ask of you so that we could give it due diligence. I'm okay with discussing and recommending JIH, but I would like us to pull the other two and take them back to the policy subcommittee if you agree, and I ask for your patience as we learn the process, and also for guidance from those of you who have done the policy policy work in the past.
So I would move that we postpone the second reading of policies JFABB and JII.
If that's for both committees, I'll second it for both.
Thank you very much.
Anderson, aye for both.
Booth, aye for both.
Out aye for both.
Mesdad, aye for both.
Mustafi, aye for region.
Rainier for both?
And Wilson for region.
All right, so JIH has not had any change, and we brought it to you again, just put a date on it that we have reviewed it and at this date, basically. So there's no change, and the policy subcommittee is recommending for your vote.
So no change whatsoever, but upon adoption, a new date will be put on it for the handbook.
That's correct.
Got it. So moved.
Are we voting now or voting later with the votes?
Oh, yeah, forgive me. I'm sorry. You're right, Heather. My
Vote later
apologies.
with the votes.
Never mind. I withdraw my motion.
So I just have a question about the searches and interrogations, and is there any Mass General law attached to that?
Yes, absolutely.
But there's none referenced.
Okay, we'll work on that when we go back to.
Let's see here. Student complaint versus.
We can work on those references when we bring it back to the subcommittee.
Yeah, I thought that was odd. We didn't see MASC there.
Yeah, we'll double check it.
Okay.
I told Court, and I don't know if the subcommittee members agree, the Zoom setting for the policy work is really challenging because we're just used to trying to, it's probably the most challenging thing I've had to do on Zoom so far because of all the versions you're trying to keep track of and do it electronically.
So we're going to send all three back?
Yeah, I think we'll postpone the votes on.
Okay.
On any today, correct?
I think it's easier for procedural things. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. So we can move to thank you to the policy committee for your ongoing work. This is great. On to the new business, the first reading of the 2021-2022 school calendar.
Yeah. Cynthia, do you want me to start that and you can jump in at any time?
Yeah, I'll just say this was it was smooth because the calendar this year compared to, let's put COVID aside, but they kind of line up in the same where Labor Day falls. So the whole conversation that we had, the lengthy one last year, was much shorter. So
right, because we used the groundwork we did last year to apply to this calendar because the dates were similar enough. All that work didn't go for nothing, it turns out, after all. Yeah. So I don't mind screen sharing. So we just have it in front of us. So you'll see we took a look. Labor Day remains still at a tricky point, which is some of what Cynthia's referencing, with it being the 6th. So we're proposing professional staff back this Thursday and Friday. First day for grades 1 through 12 on the 30th of August. We did delay K's return a little bit just to give them a chance to acclimate and have a little bit of a shorter week the first week. Outside of that, it's the Friday the 3rd as a long weekend, which is a normal process for us and contractual. Then if you get to October, you see our first conference date is the high school, and then followed by K-5, November 4th, and the middle school conferences align with their trimesters, which is why it's out in December. Other than that, the typical holidays at Veterans Day and Thanksgiving. The December break fell nice and cleanly, honestly, with the way the holidays fall. So we're out the half day of the 23rd, back in class on the 3rd of January. Professional Day, middle and high school have our day that they devote to PD. There's another conference day for elementary in the spring, which is why it's not K-12. We're proposing that at the semester change at the high school, which would fall the 24th of January. And then it got really simple, actually. Maybe we're just so used to it being super complicated. This felt much easier. Cynthia's right. And then into April, the conference day for K-5 on the 7th. And then you'll see how June plays out. graduation on the 4th, the 180th Student Day on the 13th. We did note the Juneteenth observance, which would, because it's on a Saturday, we would observe it on the 17th. By law, we have to count out the 185th day. I think, some caveats here that are worth noting. One is the Wednesdays are now going to be our early release at elementary and middle school. We've actually really enjoyed that this year rather than Tuesday. So we propose sticking with that. In terms of the last week of school, and I think it's better we talk about this earlier and then see what options we actually get from DESE. I would propose 2 regular snow days, and then if DESE allows it, going remote learning after that. So I think I'd rather, forgive me, but I'd rather have this conversation now than next winter. And then I don't know what DESE's going to allow, but that would be my proposal. And then the last thing we did not anchor in here yet, the high school has 4 half days by contract that we are still just solidifying. They will be on Wednesdays to sync up so we can do some of that same pre-K to post-secondary path work that we talked about earlier. So those dates will come to you as we finish them up. But we wanted to get the calendar in front of you so the community can start to see the plan.
I have a question.
Sure.
Have we ever started kindergarten asynchronously? That's like a new word for this year. With grades 1 to 12? Is that our practice? We haven't, right?
No, we haven't. They usually have a visiting day to get into the classrooms and in-person things. So no.
We haven't.
In terms of an asynchronous start, we aren't convinced they're going to count those anymore. So we aren't proposing any remote days as replacement to full school days, other than hoping they'll allow that on a snow day. Am I answering the right question, Alexa?
No. Wait, sorry. My question was, historically, again, my kids aren't that old. Kindergarten and the rest of the grades have always started on the same day. Is that correct? It's like, that's to the best of my recollection.
Usually, but we usually, so let me give you, I think I know what you're asking now.
So just what was the rationale for this?
Yeah, twofold. One is the lack of ability this spring to do any orientation work with the kids. They're going to be coming to the schools probably for the first time in the fall, most likely, which is a big difference for us. And also, just looking at the normal patterns of how we would start the week, it's very odd that we would have the first day for kids be a Monday.
Totally.
So just looking at the, getting acclimated to school for the very youngest kids, new routines, all of that. We had a lot of talk with the CTA about hoping for another day. They're going to look to do more family communication and parent onboarding and work with kids. Probably there'll be some small groups of kids coming in, some visits. We just wanted to stagger that, and also knowing there would likely be COVID restrictions. So we just delayed it a little bit to give them some wiggle room.
So on the earlier part of the week would be those small visit days?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we're allowed to give them like 2 less days?
As long as we meet the required hours, which.
Got it. Okay.
K's got different or no requirements the same way.
Makes sense.
I can't see. So this is your first reading. If you're comfortable, we'll bring it next week and ask to get the vote done and be able to share it with the community.
So one thing to clarify later, the only thing yet to be established are those high school half days. The rest of the PD days and conference days are all on there already.
Yes.
Great.
And is Columbus Day a topic in discussion?
Oh, right. That was my other question.
With the town?
It has not been broached there. So I think as chairs, maybe we should talk on how you want to go about that. Or as the committee as a whole.
Well,
I'm happy to do it. I didn't take away. That was my
Nope, we did
my
not.
next step to do. Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, we did get all of those letters, addressed to the school committee, and we talked about coordinating with the town, which I think we should do. I think we should at least address that question before we vote this calendar in.
It's on our goals in the,
Yep.
in our, yeah.
I really do think it should be a town school wide decision and not just a school decision.
I agree with that.
So do we approach the chair of the select board?
That would be my suggestion, is the committee chairs bring the letters you received, for get them to the chair, both. I mean, you could bring them to both select boards, right, in both communities if you wanted to, and ask for a conversation.
Now, that conversation presumes that this school committee supports the majority opinion of the students we have heard from. That majority proposing the naming of the holiday in our district as Indigenous Peoples Day, capital I, capital P, capital D. Am I correct?
Yes.
So, so I think we should make our implicit thinking a little more explicit before the chairs head off to do this.
Yes.
I'm in favor of pursuing this conversation and proposing some positive action on it in regard to the naming. I'm not proposing that the reference to Christopher Columbus be banished. That's entirely different. What I'm suggesting is that our calendars reference it as the student suggested. We don't have any authority to rename federal holidays.
Okay. So is this something that we vote on, or we go around offering consent or dissent, or?
Well, since we don't have it on the agenda, we really shouldn't vote formally, but we can take a straw poll, I think is fair.
I guess so support and I are asking if we have all of your support in approaching the select boards to have this conversation.
I would support that.
Me as well.
Same. Those kids worked hard. Those letters were great.
Likewise.
Full support, thanks.
Great.
So we will report back to you. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And then, Lori, do you think that you'll have a sense for the high school half days already next week, or?
Yeah, we've got a draft list. So let me see if I'm ready to. I'll try to have it for you.
Okay. But it doesn't affect our instruction time or anything like that.
No, it would just put it out all at once with everything else. Yeah.
Lori, and when do you think Desi will give us guidance on those snow days for the future?
With all the,
I don't know.
You might hear it on the news before.
Still wondering how I know what's going on without the news media telling me. So I don't know. I don't know, Eva. It'll be summer at best, I suspect. We're probably going to get through this year before they visit that.
they could change their mind, as we know.
Yes.
All right.
I think, does this bring us to action items? Where we are? Yes. Action items. We only have one action item now. Correct? Because we have pushed the policy one to the next meeting.
Yes.
Further deliberation on the policy subcommittee.
So I think this one is in reference to EDCO. If we can move to that, we all recognize it as very unfortunate and very necessary. I think we've been through it rather fully, and the superintendent even more so as our representative on their board of directors. Lori, before we frame the vote, do you want to speak to the recent correspondence that came our way and the potential liabilities?
Yeah, as best I know them, anyway. So EDCO, with the board did unanimously vote to start the termination process. And so we've been trying to gather as much information from the EDCO leadership as possible, with the intent that termination would be effective July 1st. So programs would be intact for students. So there's some still need for cash flow for the next number of months. So the short-term liability is about maintaining that cash flow and looking for how to reduce expenses at all possible ways, but knowing that EDCO doesn't have the funds to cover even minimal ones. So there will be a short-term ask of the member districts just to get us through till June. Early numbers have looked, I've seen a couple of versions everywhere from approximately 17 to 30,000 per district. The long-term liability here involves all the outstanding deficits and, things that need to be reconciled. The most substantial of that is the lease that the EDCO building in Bedford is a 9-year lease, and with another 8 years to go on the lease, if the collaborative is fiscally liable, even without being present, then we could be looking at $200,000-300,000 per district as all the liabilities tally up. If there's a way out of the lease, which despite a lot of effort is still very unclear, then it would drop probably under the 200,000 mark per district. So we're talking substantial monies. And really the termination decision is about, mitigating any further liabilities accumulating here, because there is no solution other than dissolving the collaborative. Very painful meeting, to say the least, with a lot more painful ones to come. So the step after the board votes it, and it was unanimous, is to bring it to each of the member district school committees. The school committees vote, and that is then officially going to start off into the process of formalizing the liabilities. DESI's going to engage more, I'm sure, and already has. And we'll be working together. I do want to bring one other piece to your attention that is a further discussion in the next couple of months. We had voted to withdraw in consultation with our attorney who has been present through these conversations. It looks quite likely that the best plan is to rescind that vote so we remain active members as the dissolution happens, so we have a voice at the table. The liabilities don't change whether we're members actively or not. They follow us. That's in the agreement. So I would like to probably bring the attorney to executive session over the next month or so, and then just have that discussion if we want to rescind our withdrawal, so we stay vocal and actively part of the dissolution of the group.
Has the attorney indicated that were we to rescind, that EDCO would have to bring us back into the fold?
I believe so, yeah. That was always the premise, because I had asked that when we voted to withdraw, that we always had the option. Yeah, that is my understanding.
Okay.
The withdrawal doesn't kick in for another year anyway, so officially we're still part of it, right?
We are, well, it's been almost a year, because we voted to withdraw almost a year ago, so that as of June 1st, 2021, we would not be members.
Okay.
So time flies when we're having fun in COVID. So now we actually want to stay present and part of the conversation.
Right.
So you're of a mind that that visit with the attorney is necessary?
I think so. She's been in on all the meetings as of late and heard them all. And I want to be sure she shares with you. She's been emailing me somewhat in between. I think it's an important piece that we have a full conversation with her and understand the district risk and legal components of this. Because
should we go ahead and get her on our calendar, or is there a reason to time this for later?
No, I think it's just, I would like to start an executive session because of the legal ramifications. That's under the acceptable reasons.
Mm-hmm.
So we should just set that. It's just been a busy executive session season. So tell me your preferred date and we'll get it set up.
I don't think they're going to lighten up in view of all.
No, they're not. Not with where we're at. No.
Well, we don't have a busy executive session for next week. So if she can work with us or he can work with us with a short timeline, is that okay with you, Sarah?
Yeah. Also, I think the 9th, we might still not have that much. So
why don't I see what her availability is over the next weeks? Okay.
We will probably have one other thing. So
yeah, with the preference to sooner because things come up.
Yep, no, I agree.
Okay, I'll check her availability. So unfortunately, that's the recommendation, is that you vote to terminate the EDCO collaborative tonight.
So I move that the Concord and Concord-Carlisle School Committees vote to terminate the EDCO collaborative as of June 30th, 2022.
Second for both.
Discussion.
Both.
Well, it's been a proud 50-year record of service, notwithstanding the debacle of the last couple of years. Unfortunate.
It's a sad vote to have to take, but unfortunately, we have to.
Roll call.
For both.
Booth, aye for both.
Out, aye for both.
Mestad, aye for both.
Mustafi, aye for region.
Rainey, aye for both.
Wilson, aye for region. Thank you. And with that, I think Evan and I may ask for permission to.
I will move for the region to release Sarah and Eva and to adjourn the regional school committee.
One of the many benefits of living in Carlisle.
We have our meeting tomorrow.
There you go. We're back at this again on Wednesday. So,
Heather, did you have a second on that?
I did.
Okay.
Okay. Roll call.
Oh, Anderson, aye. For
Booth, aye.
Out, aye.
Mestad, aye.
Mustafi, aye for region.
Rainey, aye.
Wilson, aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Sarah.
All next Tuesday.
So the hour is approaching 8:40. We're still holding up nicely for the moment. We're going to move under the Concord School Committee's agenda to the superintendent's recommended budget for fiscal 22.
We're going to turn it over to Jared.
So Jared, you're going to pull up your slides, are you?
Jared, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. I'm pulling it up right now.
Thank you, sir.
Great. Can you all see that?
That, yes. The header slide, yes.
Great. All right. Excellent. Okay, so again, there's going to be quite a bit of information. And if I could just ask you to maybe try and hold off on questions, I'm sure I will answer most of them, if not all of them, by the end of this presentation. So same exact timeline, except for Concord this time. Again, we're presenting tonight, voting the budget hopefully by the 19th, March 9th, having the public hearing. This Saturday, we have the preview meeting. And then the warrant articles are due on the 19th. The budget book will be available on the 30th. Finance Committee in Concord hearing on May 6th. And then the warrant article motions are due on the 25th and Concord Town meeting on the 13th. So again, as you know, we've been looking at all the scenarios that can be on the table for the fall. Initially, we budgeted for all of them, but then we had to try to accommodate for all options, knowing that we have to pick a preferred one. Again, once we were able to do that, the budget started to come together. So the first is to have everyone back in person, again, perhaps with some modifications, assuming no hybrid at the high school. I mean, at the middle
Jared,
school.
middle school.
Middle school. We did not budget monies for any remote academy, which are running right now, but if there becomes a need, that money again would come out of the CARES Act and contingency planning. This budget also does not include student supervisors, which is hundreds of thousands of dollars. Obviously, this strategy is up for discussion. Substitute and professional development lines were fully replenished. And lastly, the software was broken out by school and department level and will be managed by the teaching and learning department. Again, it's important to point out that about 80% of the software used is either because of COVID or assisting with remote learning. We used the same zero-based budget process, looked at every single line, and went absolutely in the weeds. And it was really, I should actually give the schools and the teachers and the department chairs more credit than I've been giving. They were excellent once again through this whole process. It's not easy at all, especially for the level of detail that we are asking from them, and they all complied. And it was actually a really, I know this sounds weird, enjoyable process, because the numbers sort of spoke for themselves. And it's a process that I feel is getting easier and easier each time. So the recommended budget for FY22 is $41,805,761, which is 2.52% more than FY21's approved budget. So we're coming in much lower than since we last presented. The 1,000 function includes all the salaries and expenditures for administration, IT, HR, and other central office-based staff. There were no budget drivers or cost savings in this function. And again, for something to be considered a budget driver, the expense type category must increase by 25,000 or more. A cost savings is something that is decreasing by 25,000 or more. At the CPS, we use 43 expense categories compared to 52 at the region. 14 of them are salary categories and 17 of them salary categories at the high school. The 2,000 function includes salaries for teachers, assistants, and tutors. The principals and assistant principals are substitute costs, school curriculum softwares, school supplies and materials, special education contract services and equipment. In addition, the computer replacement cycles in our contingency accounts round out the bulk of the rest. Salaries for teachers account for $693,769 of the $1,213,000 increase in the 2000 series. Another large budget drivers are the substitute lines. We increased these $191,148, which is primarily what they were prior to the COVID. We put back most of our field trip costs. This is an increase of $26,000 over FY21's budget. We also put back professional development, which was an increase district-wide of $149,000. Some materials and supplies were added back to this budget this year, and is increasing $28,830 in this 2000 series. The last cost driver is the hardware and software accounts, which have increased a total of $163,708. We budgeted approximately $208,000 for over the 101 different software we use pre-K through 8. And again, I'm going to keep repeating this, 80% of these were either added due to COVID or assist with the remote learning. We did have one cost saving in the 2000 function. Our tutors and assistant lines are decreasing $128,000 from FY21's budget. The FTEs will reflect that when I get to that presentation. But this, if you remember in my prior presentation, this was actually a cost driver, but we were able to go back and take a look again at these lines. The 3000 series includes our transportation expenses, nurses, athletics, and student activities. We are seeing a large savings in this function in our special education contracted transportation line, and that's contributing to the decrease. The 4000 series includes our maintenance costs, utilities, custodial maintenance salaries, and vehicle insurance account for 75% of the function costs. The other 25% is made up of supplies, materials, and contracted services. Overall, this function is going up $134,000. Salaries and utilities accounted for $88,000 of this increase. Fixed charges include the retirement incentive and our sick leave buyback costs. These two lines are decreasing almost $47,000. I'll go into that on some more detail on another slide. But other small expenditures in the 5000 series include postage and small liability insurances. Community services is the private school transportation salaries. 3.67 FTEs are dedicated to these runs. Fixed assets are increasing due to the 2 new bus leases in this budget. And lastly, special education tuitions are actually reducing $357,415 from FY21's budget, but our offsets for circuit breaker and the IDEA grant actually decreased $55,685 based on our estimates. Again, I'll speak more about this in a future slide, but that is why the decrease is $301,000 instead of $357,000. So again, overall, the increase is 2.52%. I've identified $1,515,863 in budget drivers made up of 11 expense categories. The first is our largest cost driver, teacher salaries. We are currently in negotiations with our teachers union, but budgeted costs are up 3.1%. I will break this down when I discuss FTEs. We put back the substitutes line. Again, overall, our hardware and software costs are up 29.84%. We identified over 101 different softwares we use. The budget for curriculum software is approximately $208,000 in this budget. Next is the increase to professional development district-wide. Overall, contract services are up 7%, but they were actually reduced in the FY21 budget due to COVID need. This request is actually $145,000 less than FY20's budget and $213 less than FY19's. As part of the 10-year bus replacement plan, again, we have 2 new bus leases. And salaries for maintenance and custodians are increasing. We're in negotiations with both of these unions. We budgeted for an additional maintenance employee, like I said, in the high school in FY20's budget, but never filled the position. We did not budget the position during the FY21 budget process, but the need to add this position was apparent due to the additional duties in cleaning, et cetera, arising because of the pandemic. This budget includes an additional split maintenance employee that, again, will hopefully allow us to continue to reduce our contract services lines. The overall utility budget is only increasing 3.38%. For a number of years, the parent-teacher group picked up the majority of student activity costs at the middle school. This is no longer the case. If you remember, as discussed during last year's budget process, we have a balance in this revolving account that is now drying up. We created a new line in the FY21's general fund budget and allocated $40,000 towards these costs, knowing that we would have to come close to fully funding it in FY22. We expect total cost to be approximately $70,000 in FY22, and we do not anticipate to have much left in this revolving account after this year. Therefore, this line is increasing an additional $30,317. Nursing salaries are increasing 4.41%. This is mainly due to CPS's share of the lead nurse stipend. And lastly, as well as salary increases. Lastly, field trip monies were put back. So again, overall, we identified $1.5 million in budget drivers. To offset the budget drivers, we identified $634,959 in cost savings. Our special educations are down $357,000. In addition, we increased our IDEA grant offset from $400,000 to $440,000. But because we are sending less students out of district, our circuit breaker projected offset is decreasing $95,685. Concord's share of the FY22 case transportation assessment is decreasing 1.79%. In addition, we are receiving a credit of $117,000. Due to these two factors, we are realizing $158,000 in budget savings. And as you know, transportation assessments are based on 2 fiscal years prior, which helps us prepare for the swings a bit better. District-wide, the assistance and tutor lines are decreasing $128,000 over FY21 budgeted, and I'll have more on this in the next section, as well as the school sections. Lastly, we have seen the peak in the sick leave and early retirement incentive. The sick leave buyback line is decreasing by over $30,000, and the early retirement incentive is decreasing over $16,000. Teachers hired before the 1992-1993 school year are eligible to buy back 50% of their accumulated sick days up to 200 days or a max of 45,000. Staff hired after 1992 are eligible to be paid 33.33% of their accumulated days or 27,900. Teachers who were hired after the 2004-2005 are not eligible for sick leave buyback. We have 14 eligible teachers at CPS for this benefit, and 4 of them were hired before the 1992-1993. This actually did not really come up in the high school presentation, but just to let you know, we have 17 high school teachers that were hired before and eligible, hired before 2004 and eligible. So again, we identified just under $635,000 in cost savings. The FY22 recommended budget includes 407.81 FTEs, which is 5.14 less than FY21 budgeted. We budgeted approximately $33,365,000 on staffing in the general fund. The only FTEs not included in this is our CAF workers who are paid out of the food service revolving account, which is self-funded. We have about 8.5 FTEs charged to the CPS food service revolving account. Again, this is the first year that we've included FTEs for drivers, and I will dive into FTEs a little bit more once I get into the locations. We budgeted $384,490 for our FY22 MECO grant toward teacher, tutor, and driver salaries. Based on the MECO director's projections, we are expected to receive about $550,000. Other expenses in the MECO grant include small supplies and materials, contract services, and the rest for transportation supplies, materials, fuel, and insurance. We use our Title I monies on tutor salaries, and we set aside $139,556 in FY22. And lastly, we increased our preschool tuition offset from $70,000 in FY21 to $140,000 in FY22, and we use this revolving account to charge preschool teacher salaries. Our FY22 special education tuitions, we budgeted $1,961,534. Our total offsets are $1,050,906. And as you can see, last year's circuit breaker offset was $650,906, which is $95,000 less than we budgeted this year. I do anticipate to have a fully funded circuit breaker revolving account for next year, so that will help. And again, having our circuit breaker reimbursement go down is a good thing. It means that we're keeping more kiddos in-house, doing more for them in-house, and our out-of-districts are going down. This budget includes out-of-district tuitions for 20 students. This is down 26 that we budgeted in July and projected, so that's really good news. And down 7 from the FY20 budgeted out-of-district tuitions. Here's a chart of our estimated savings due to the early retirement incentive. Again, when someone retires, they are all at the top of their lane, and then we bring somebody in for significantly less. And as you can see here, these numbers, because there's more teachers at the CPS level, are considerable and considerable savings. CPS has 22 buses, 2 of which are wheelchair buses. The oldest, again, of this fleet is 2008. As part of the 21 budget, CPS completed the procurement of 2 new buses. We expect them in April. Delivery of a second electric bus from E-Lion is expected in June or July. It keeps sort of getting delayed, but hopefully it will be here before the start of the next school year. The second electric bus is funded through the Mass Volkswagen Settlement Grant. We've heard nothing about round 2. As soon as we do, we plan to apply. We have 26.73 transportation driver FTEs at Concord. 19.37 of these are for regular runs. 3.68 are designated for MECO, and 3.68 are designated for private schools. Overall, the preschool budget location is down 4.45% from FY21 budgeted. We have a total of 16.63 FTEs in our preschool program. 7.8 of these FTEs are teachers. We are seeing a decrease in the teachers funding line because, again, we increased our offset in this year's in the offset from 70 to 140. So that is applied directly to those teachers lines. The tutors and assistants FTEs are decreasing Due to the number of hours these tutors are now needed per day, this is more in line with what they are working now, and we are seeing budget savings in FY21 as well. The contract services, which are special education related, are decreasing $20,000. And lastly, we allocated $4,256 for the preschool shares of the software costs. The district-wide elementary location is going down 3.7% from FY21 budgeted. We have a total of 14.2 FTEs in the district-wide elementary location. FTEs are decreasing because we moved the Director of Student Services, which is the salary administration line, and the out-of-district coordinator, which is the 0.1 of the teacher's salary line, to a district-wide location. So this is district-wide elementary, and then we also have a district-wide. Both positions have been budgeted in a number of different locations throughout the years, and this will be a wash, again, with the district-wide increases. Field trip lines were reduced in FY21, and we are replenishing them. Legal is being moved to one district-wide line account, but we level funded legal lines in FY22. We just moved them. The nursing line, again, includes a lead nurse stipend for Concord. Going to Alcott. So Alcott is going down 3.92% from FY21 budgeted. We have a total of 68.14 FTEs budgeted in this location. This is 7.10 FTEs less than FY21's budget. Based on the current needs, 2 tutor and 2 assistant positions are being reduced in this budget. In addition, 3 teaching positions are being reduced due to enrollment projections. The first is in kindergarten. We currently have 4 sections, and we expect to need only 3 at this time. The projected first grade enrollment does not currently warrant 4 sections, and the 5th grade is a bubble class. Also, the outer district coordinator is the 0.1 here and will be moved to the district-wide location. Some professional development is being added back to the school level, and substitute lines are being replenished. Additionally, Alcott's share of the software amount is $45,397. And again, to reiterate, 80% of these were added and used for COVID learning. Lastly, we expect to see some reduction in utility costs once the ERUs are done this summer. So we felt comfortable reducing the electrical $11,000. The Thoreau location is going up 5.71% from FY21 budgeted. We have 75.84 FTEs here. This is 3.4 FTEs more than FY21's budget. The Thoreau School houses intensive learning programs for grades K through 2 currently. We are now expanding that to grades 3 through 5. To do that, we need 1 additional tutor, 1 additional assistant, and 1 additional intensive needs special education teacher. There is also a need for a 0.5 speech language pathologist position. We were able to lower the special ed contract services line at this location by doing this. Also, again, the 0.1 is the out-of-district coordinator's position that's moving district-wide. Some professional development is being added back, as well as the substitute lines, and Thoreau's share of the software is $45,397. Willard is going up 6.65% from FY21 budgeted. We have a total of 73.51 FTEs budgeted in this location, and it's only an increase of 0.03 FTEs. Willard had 0.87 overall FTE reduction in tutors and assistants from the budgeted FTEs. There was a need for an additional 1.0 intensive needs special education teacher. And again, the 0.1 FTE of the outer district coordinator is being moved to district-wide, and that is how I came up with the 0.03. Professional development and substitute lines are being replenished, and Willard's share of the software is $46,894. The middle school location is going up 4.9% from FY21 budgeted. We have a total of 108.5 FTEs, which is 1.4 FTEs lower than FY21's budget. In salary administration, the Director of Student Services is being moved district-wide. So again, this is a wash. The tutors and assistant line is being reduced 2. There is an increase overall of 0.9 FTEs in the teachers line, but there's actually some moving parts. The English line is decreasing. The reason for this is because we moved the 1.0 ELL teacher to its own line. As you know, grade 6 has clean teams where ELA, math, science, and social studies are assigned to one team without any teachers being split across grade levels. Last year, we added a 0.8 science and a 0.8 social studies to grade 7, so that has been clean this year. The ELA and math staffing was also increased prior to Dr. Hunter's and Mr. Cameron's arrival, which allowed for growth to clean teams without additional staff. This year, we are requesting a 0.8 science FTE and a 0.8 social studies FTE to grade 8. Doing this now allows for the benefits to kids and teachers of clean teams. It also gives us the planning time to maximize the opportunity of the new school when space is arranged in local pods, while currently the facilities detract from the possibilities substantially. In addition, we are reinstating the applied technology position that we left vacant this year due to the retirement and COVID impacts. Special education teachers are decreasing 2.1. These are primarily because the needs of the incoming 6th grade is less. We are adequately resourced at Peabody without replacing them for at least the FY22 year. So this is how we got to the overall 0.9 FTE increase you're seeing in the teachers line. Contract services are going up 34,000. The majority of this is in the special education contract service line. We reduced this line in FY21, but we needed to put some money back, which would be more in line with our actuals. And the FY22 request is still less than the FY16 to FY20 budgeted. Professional development and substitute lines were reinstated. The middle school share of the software is approximately $66,764. The district-wide location is going up 1.17%. We had some large drivers, and we also had some large cost savings. The first large increase is in our maintenance contract services, and they are increasing $87,000 over FY21's request. We actually reduced this area in FY21, but that was only a one-year reduction, and the need to fund these will be there in FY22. Our maintenance and custodial supplies and materials are actually decreasing $41,213 in FY22. In fact, custodial and maintenance budgeted supplies for FY22 are $57,000 less than FY17's, $95,000 less than FY18's, and $127,000 less than FY19's, and actually $132,000 less than FY20's. When it comes to the maintenance and custodial budgets, we continue to refine our zero-based process and reclassify expenditures correctly. The supplies, materials, and contract services line make up the bulk of the maintenance and custodial budget lines, which just excludes salaries and utilities. And the combined FY22 request is significantly less than FY20's and FY19's. It's actually $77,000 less than FY20's and $99,000 less than FY19's. Legal here is showing as an increase, but we just moved it to one location and legal was level funded. We added some monies back into district-wide professional development. The increase in salary admin, again, is due to the Director of Student Services being moved to this location. Otherwise, it's a wash. And then the cost savings you see in other transportation is the savings in the case transportation line. Salaries for teachers is increasing 1.10, but it's due to a few moving parts. 0.2 of this is our district-wide behavioral specialist. The FTE was budgeted as a 0.8 and should have been a 1.0 in FY21. The money was in one of the special ed contract services lines instead of a salary line. This is more of a budget correction, but it is showing as an increase. The additional 0.9 FTE is for the out-of-district coordinator, as well as the special education coordinator who is now being shared with the high school. We have 2 new bus leases in FY22. Therefore, the vehicle expense category is increasing almost $64,000. And lastly, we have the savings in special education tuitions, sick leave, and early retirement, supplies, and materials. So this is just an update on the CARES Act. Again, sort of the same story at the high school. We will expend all of the $467,775. The town did give us $126,825, and we hope to carry over the emergency relief amounts. We still don't know the total amount for this second round. We anticipate it's going to be about $427,000, and we will have hopefully additional money from the Biden administration. So I will give detailed reports going forward on the CARES Act. So that went quicker than I thought. So that is the CPS budget, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Again, a lot of information, a lot of numbers, and I will share this presentation as soon as I'm finished.
Thank you, Jared. I anticipate we're going to have questions after we receive the presentation and study it more, but let's get started tonight. Do we have questions?
I'll go again.
Alexa.
Okay. My questions are in the budget, going back to the budget assumptions, you guys are talking about not running a remote academy. I was just curious, how many kids do we have in that? What's the percentage of our student body? I forget. I think it was under 10%.
Yeah, we're right around 10 or 11.
Okay.
We're about to pull those numbers again because we have one last opportunity for families to switch.
And then, so when, I guess, when will those families have to make, well, I guess if we're not running it, they won't get to make a decision. Is that the idea?
So I'll answer what I'm proposing at our level and not know what the state's going to do. What we're expecting is one with a full in-person return and expanded vaccinations and all, there'd be a lot less need for it. So we would very much like to see that most kids are back in school and families don't have quite the same range of options. That said, I'm already in conversations with some of the districts local to us that if the state says we must continue to offer the remote option in the fall, that we all need to find a way to do this more cost efficiently. And, we've already floated even, is there a regional way to do it or something very different than what we're doing right now of still quality, if that's the insistence. The other thing Jared and I talked about, once we had anchored the assumption that we were building a budget for a full return, we also part of the reason to carry CARES Act money over is so we know that is available should, for whatever costs are going to, if we need to run that and we have to incur those costs.
Okay. And then I guess, okay, so my next question is, so right now, all of our K to 5 kids have laptops. I you remember, or iPads and a mixture of iPads and laptops. I think we mentioned those would sort of go away and then become absorbed into the succession plan, which was needed. So if we're buying all this software, which again, I get now from the previous discussion, how are we going to use it?
Right. So the laptop, so first, we're not ready to pull the laptops from the one-to-one until we're 100% sure COVID doesn't dictate some need for remote opportunities, right? So we are going into, that was our other assumption going into this build, was that we were going to remain one-to-one for another school year, K-5.
Yeah. Okay.
Mostly to keep options available to us. Then we're going to have to do that same process we talked about at the upper grades to really look at the balance, what tools have been beneficial. Like, I don't see us ever giving up Seesaw at the younger grades. That platform has anchored us in a different, more organized way.
So it is to do homework kind of thing?
Or whatever tools appropriately, you know, we queue them up to do that are content related or practice related, balanced with all the other, you know, hopefully much less screen driven activities that continue to be part of the elementary curriculum. So we need to do all that vetting process as we make our way out of COVID and find the right balance to that. But in the meantime, we're going to allow and maintain the one-to-one accessibility.
All right.
So I just, since we're on that topic, on the, you know, to Fatima's earlier comments, I have a very huge concern with parents trying to manage kids who have kindergartners, first grade, second graders, MacBooks at home. Do we have a robust management system where we can shut down all applications and things that we consider that could be harmful to our students? Instant messaging, Facebook, off campus, so that we can have tight controls on the usage of these devices?
Yeah, I mean, I want Peter here to give you the, you know, detailed answer. We do have a lot of controls. I don't believe as many are going to be able to apply at home. Parents need to put those controls on their networks at home rather than the ones we control through the school network. But we're happy to have Peter come talk about what we've set up.
Okay. Yeah, I'd like him to come and talk to us because we've been investing. There's many more tools out there and they're not free. But, you know, I think if we make a commitment to have kids have these laptops at home when they can't be 100% supervised by parents, I really think we need to lock them down. Otherwise, I don't think they should go home with these kids so young.
We agree completely. Once we're out of COVID, we don't want them going home either. Let me say that very clearly. Right now, they go home because it's
I understand that.
Long term, we don't want them to go home either, Cynthia. They'll be back at school, anchored at school. I'm not sure what our need is next year. We haven't tried to determine that. We know we want the option to send them home if we're somehow going to backtrack to a COVID mode that needs to provide that for us.
Okay.
But yeah, we're not looking to be one-to-one 5 and 6 year olds at home with laptops of ours over the long term.
Yeah, that's not an option we want to exercise if we can help it.
Yeah, that is not in fact, the intent is we're going to make our way back to 2-to-1 school-based usage.
So the idea then, Lori, is if we're back in the fall, the way we're hoping to be, the kids wouldn't go home with their laptops every night.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
And then my final question is, what's a bubble class?
Oh, we had an enrollment bubble at Alcott that we've been managing for many years now. It's one section bigger than all of the other grades at Alcott. So there's been this ongoing need to have the staffing follow that larger group of kids.
And they're exiting.
They're on their way to the middle school in the fall. Yeah.
No, thanks. That's it for me.
just throw in a comment, sorry, just to go back to the laptop use. I think also I look at this as something really urgent, and I would like us to have any use of laptops or internet access for our students, whether at home or in the classroom, contingent on blocking anything that distracts them. And I disagree that it should fall on parents when they go home, because parents are juggling so much and some of them are not technology savvy. So would like us to be in charge of those laptops that we're sending home, and when we're using them in the classroom. It's really important to me, as far as I'm concerned, that these two go hand in hand.
Okay, point well taken. Other comments, questions?
Yeah, I'll jump in. Let's see. So I'm looking at special ed now. And let's see, I want to look at, first of all, the numbers are incredible. And having watched the progression of special ed over the past several years and the investments that were made a few years ago to bring more kids in and really service them better, it's really exciting to see what we've done, that we're servicing them so much better, and we've cut costs in the meantime from those initial investments. I also wanted to, there were two related questions though. Let me see. One is, it seems like in terms of ongoing investment in special ed at this level, the one that really jumped out to me was the extra FTE at Thoreau. But it does seem like in terms, that doesn't become a budget driver, because in the mix of all the FTEs, it becomes a wash because there are decreases in FTEs other places. So it doesn't stand out as an actual budget driver. So I guess my two related questions would be, one, is that correct? And two, are there other investments that we see as necessary to continue this progression of servicing kids better in our buildings?
Right. So I think there's a couple of answers to that. One is, you're still building these programs vertically. So we are still creating the program kids are feeding up to as they age up.
We have to build it, right?
So we're still filling in those gaps. The other side of that discussion is, because we're servicing so many kids in district successfully, there's a lot of nuance of need that we're starting to now be able to separate.
Right.
And actually, I'll use Willard as an example for that. We've had a language-based classroom. We're now distinguishing between language-based and language acquisition needs, two very different things, and splitting those students up so we can better service them, and we need separate settings to do it.
Right.
So there's a combination of the two, both which are great, and probably signs of, the second one especially, is signs of progress in many ways beyond what I had ever expected this early in the growth of these programs. So that's that piece. In terms of additional supports, the need for a half-time speech pathologist to support the number of programs now and the number of kids with intensive language needs at Thoreau is absolutely driving that.
Right.
So yes, all still very cost effective though, in terms of money, because, for every person we're hiring, we're serving multiple kids within a setting, and they're integrated as much as they possibly can be, and the richness and life of the school is also highly benefited out. You've heard me say that. So there'll be bits more to come. I think we look ahead, and you've heard this at the middle school piece. We know these programs serving some of the autistic population at Thoreau, they're going to hit. We're talking about building room for them at the new middle school building. So obviously there's going to need to be some look at staffing as we go, but we're also zero basing. So we're adjusting staffing based on the needs we have, not just projections, and holding space, not just projections, but actual needs. So my hope is it would continue to be some sort of not huge driver the way it kind of worked out this year, but there's no assuredness of that. Should we have to keep bringing requests for staff, we're going to continue to bring the decrease in enrollment, decrease in tuition costs to remind you why it's okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, that's great. I mean, it's certainly on a very effective trajectory right now. So it's great to hear.
It's great. It's really great. And I'll just, the numbers at elementary, as those get, I mean, we're at 20 right now, those are going to feed up into the high school, and the regional benefit in a way they're benefiting now, but there's more to come. And it's just turned into such success. And that's kudos to everyone who's made it happen.
Yeah, great. It does seem like, and I guess this is another assumption, but looking at the numbers that we have, I mean, a slightly over 2% increase is pretty incredible, especially a couple of years in a row, given that if you look back, 5, 6, 7 years, our increase numbers were a lot higher than that year after year. And I look at the savings that you've showed us, and it seems to me, again, assumptions, but that the changes in the special ed programming, the early retirement incentive that we've done, some things like that seem like big drivers in getting us to lower increases year over year. Is that accurate?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, some of those drivers are why this budget's coming in where it is. We actually went into this build, me especially, very anxious, knowing what we had reduced for COVID purposes, position we didn't fill, reduction and other things, really worried the percentage increase was going to be high. And those factors you mentioned, and looking at enrollments, and we can talk on that if you want, or save it for next time, just in terms of the actuals we have and projections, all of it balanced each other out in a reasonable way. So,
great.
Yeah.
And my last question, I don't think there's an answer to yet, so it's more a question to put on our parking lot, but I want it to be out there, as we've all talked about, the advantages of this past year, the silver linings that we might want to continue. One of them that I know I see, and this is K-12, so excuse me for not mentioning it earlier, but is the option for kids to learn remotely when they are individually sick or something. So even though we are not right now planning for a remote academy, I would love to keep in that parking lot. How do we potentially extend the opportunity for kids to not be absent on a day when they have a cold and don't want to spread their cold to peers, but don't want to miss out? And again, it obviously becomes even more relevant middle school and high school, because that's when work backs up when they're missed. But so that's just something that I would love to keep on our radar. And it's only slightly budget related, but somewhat budget related. So I wanted to bring it up here.
Yeah, and like I said, we're going to bring you the formal structure we're building. I've asked Kristen to really run that, and you'll get a chance to give us that feedback and the major way we're going to collect all that information and then try to sort through.
Great, thank you. And I know it's only somewhat related, but I know it'll have budget implications. So thank you. That's all my questions for now.
That's a wonderful idea, Heather, the remote learning for during sick days. I wonder if DESE would still recognize that as a school day in comparison to what we discussed earlier. If we were to implement that, would it still count as a school day or not?
So individual student days are really between the district and the family in terms of excused and unexcused and all of that. So yes, I mean, I can't say I've got all these answered, and obviously the teachers need to be part of
course,
what's doable in the long term. I don't know. I see why you're bringing it up, because that's been a definite positive.
Yeah, and budget is by no means the only factor. It's only a small.
No, right? It's complicated.
There's a lot more, mostly discussions with teachers, but.
Well, it might reduce the kids who come to school sick, especially. This is probably a much more important conversation to have at the high school at the region.
Yeah.
But the instances of flu this year are almost nothing.
Yeah, we've had. I actually had this conversation with a teacher yesterday at one of the schools, and how do we, not that we all want to be distanced and masked past COVID, but we aren't getting each other as sick as normal either. So, right. What part of that can we hold on to? That
right. A lot of people, I think, feel pressure that they miss the class.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Other questions? We know we're going to continue budget deliberations next week and the following week. So Jared will be getting the material to us. Anything else for tonight on this item?
I have one. It shouldn't take too long. It's just really clarification. I don't think I'm understanding this well. And it had to do with the bringing the special needs students from out of district back into our district. I didn't see that reflected in page 5. The numbers didn't reflect that. I'm wondering if I'm just misunderstanding that. If you could explain, Jared.
Sure. So you're looking at the 301,000, the negative?
In the 9,000 function.
Yeah. So the reason for that is so we're saving 357,000 in tuitions, but we also have a circuit breaker offset that we take off the top that's part of the 9,000 series. Our offsets are actually like 50 plus thousand less. It's $56,000 less than they were in the FY21 budget. Therefore, the delta isn't the 357, it's actually 301.
Okay, so the difference is showing up in the circuit breaker offset.
Correct. And if you went to slide,
it was on page 8.
Right. So as we spend less on out of districts, the subsidy from the state goes down.
I see.
So it's a little counterintuitive, but it's actually a sign of progress.
Okay.
Yeah.
Slide 8 does.
Not doing it for me.
Yeah.
No, we've had to talk ourselves through that a couple times.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Slide 8
it's like it's going down, Lori. That's really not, oh, look, less. I'm like, right, because less kids are going out. We're spending less on tuition. So, oh, yeah, it's a good thing.
All right. That's all I had.
Good.
So with that, Jared, should we move to capital, please?
Yes.
Yeah.
I have that up.
This should be pretty quick, I think.
I sent you that I sent you the capital. I sent you the 2 presentations. We're going to be posting that online, maybe even tonight, if not tomorrow. Let me pull up the capital.
And Laura, you've spoken with the town manager.
I have in passing. I think Jared spoke to the town.
I did. I talked to Kerry. Might have been right before the break, and she didn't 100% confirm the 900, but she didn't deny it. They still haven't made a decision. I'm hoping that the 900. I think she would have given me more of a hint that wasn't going to be.
And it's responsible to use it because we've been using it for some time.
Yeah.
Yeah. For lack of another number, it's our norm. So.
My first year, did we get $1 million?
No. Oh, I couldn't speak to that. I don't remember.
No, it's actually been a little less early my days.
So most of this is going to be the energy recovery unit?
Correct. Yeah. So we're going to be doing the ERUs this summer with FY21 capital at Alcott. And then for this year's FY22's request, it would continue and it would be Thoreau for next summer. So that's $665,000 of the $900,000 request. Tiling and carpet replacement. It's going to probably be more tiling. That's a 4-year project, but we'd like to start some of that this summer. Integrated playground. That's still a conversation that we're having, but we want to at least put some monies into that. $25,000. And then the Peabody as well as the Sanborn, we always carry $50,000 in each school for the unknowns. I actually have some really good news regarding the 4 rooftop units. Right before this meeting, we actually did get approved for the Green Communities grant. So that came in at 3:30, Laurie.
Yeah, so the town's committed to working with us on that and submitting the application and, really will be pretty well subsidized for that project through the state.
Yeah.
So it was basically an invitation to ask that will probably yield what we're looking for.
Well, it was an invitation that required us to agree to the matching funds. So this plan had to complement what the grant can offer.
Right.
Yeah.
Good news.
So what we need to do for capital is the grant will not cover the engineering. So we need to fund that, and then we'll get the rest of the funding. So we do have time. The work is actually not going to take place until next summer, the summer of 2022. And the application actually is not due till the fall, but we're going to be working with Kate Hanley on that. We can get started, this summer, hopefully on the engineering and et cetera, if this is approved at town meeting, and get a head start. And lastly, we have a little bit of parking and paving to do at the Ripley. It's more of a bigger project we're going to bring to you most likely in FY23. It's just to fix some potholes, et cetera. If you drive in that parking lot, there's work that needs to be done. We are working with the town on this. They've been amazing. So we are going to get this at a lower cost. If we were going to go out on our own, it would have been more money. But because we've developed such a great relationship with them, they've helped us at every turn. So this is our proposed $900,000 capital budget. And again, the ERUs are the significant cost. And we do expect to see utility savings in the future. And that's why I felt comfortable reducing some Alcott ERU, some Alcott savings.
Yeah, we saw what, 11,000 come.
About 11,000. It might be more, but that was a good number I was comfortable starting with.
Questions, comments? Anything that is not on this multi-year plan that keeps you up at night?
No, but I actually wouldn't mind showing you this, and I showed you it before. If we had extra monies in the budget, this is something that I would like to get. It is in the capital plan for 24. And you have seen this before, but it's a scraper for the top of the buses. Our staff are currently doing this. So one, it would save time, and most importantly, I think it could prevent injuries. They're going on they're trying to scrape the roof, etc. So if this is something that we had a surplus in either this year or next year, I might recommend that we try and fund this. But other than that, no, I think every time I get a call after 9 o'clock, I feel like it's the middle school, and that's the only thing that sort of keeps me up. But
yeah, I thought you were going to say that.
Yeah, I shouldn't have said that. But we have two great supervisors there who work 7 days a week to keep those buildings running, and we do the best we can to prepare for the worst.
All right, thank you. Questions or comments? And we are not going to vote on this tonight. There will be another opportunity to dive into this. Cynthia, did you have something?
Nope, it looks good. Yep.
All right, thank you, Jared.
I'll come in.
So at this point, we are going to handle one action item. Dr. Hunter may want to speak to this. We'll put the motion on the table and then ask you to speak on it. It reads as follows: that the Concord School Committee votes to accept a $1,000 donation to the Willard Elementary School from Alliance Energy LLC. I will consider that my motion. I'm asking for a second, please.
Second.
And Lori, could you speak to it?
Yeah, it's just a very thoughtful, generous donation from a local business.
All right, okay. Questions, comments?
Thank you.
Just gratitude.
Thank you. Is it coming with any request that it be used for any specific purposes, or is the school free?
Yeah, no, general fund.
And at some point, we will, I'm sure, hear how Willard and students and teachers there have benefited.
Yeah.
Might we have a roll call, please?
Anderson, aye.
Booth, aye.
Aye.
Maystat, aye.
Rainy, aye.
And so again, with thanks to our benefactor, Alliance Energy. With that, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn. We are a mere 2+ hours over our estimate. So you need a new chair, clearly. Might we have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Okay. Cynthia had the energy to raise her hand, and Heather followed with a second. And those in favor, roll call, please.
Anderson, aye.
Booth, aye.
Aye.
Maystat, aye.
Rainy, aye.
And to people who joined us tonight, we want to thank you for your stamina as well. And to my colleagues and Lori and Jared and Ian as well, certainly, and everybody who's been here tonight. Thank you for hanging in there and working with us to get through a lot of information. We will see you next week.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Have a good night.